Chapter 944, Ancient Gods' Wrath and Plenilin's Roar. Chapter 944, Ancient Gods' Wrath and Plenilin's Roar. Don't be stupid, Jian Wushuang. Gu King said urgently, the essence blood in your body is something that King Luozhen left behind at great cost. It's very rare. If you take your time and slowly absorb it, you'll surely become a top expert. If you force it now, it can only temporarily improve your strength. It'll just be a waste, and once it erodes you, you'll suffer greatly. Besides, there's a chance that we can still turn the situation around. Those experts on your side may have some cards up their sleeves. In the worst-case scenario, you can just run and make a comeback again in the future. Make a comeback again in the future? Jian Wushuang shook his head with a smile. This battle started because of me. How can I hide during a crisis? Do you think I am a coward? He was determined to make use of the essence blood wrapped within his bloodline power. Suddenly, his bloodline power erupted and swallowed 10% of the essence blood. Jian Wushuang. Gu King, who resided inside him, shouted anxiously. He was relieved when he saw that Jian Wushuang had only swallowed 10% of the essence blood. Fortunately, it's only 10% of it. It was a pity that Jian Wushuang had wasted 10% of the essence blood, but fortunately, there was still 90% of it left. Jian Wushuang's bloodline power surged wildly after swallowing the essence blood. He stood up in the sinkhole and then slowly rose above while bathed in dark golden light. In the beginning, the light covered only his chest, but it soon enveloped his entire body. The shape of quadrangular stars began flashing between his eyebrows. The first star appeared, followed by the second and third. The last one was particularly dazzling. 3-star Ancient God. He had become a perfect ancient god of imperial kinsmen. Jian Wushuang lifted his head to reveal a pair of eyes that had completely turned dark golden. Lightning seemed to sparkle in his pupils in an arc. He looked at the battlefield where Emperor Zhao's men had retreated far into the distance while the opposing Dao masters frantically pursued them. This was especially true for the immortal army of the Xia clan. The army consisted of many people with the strength of a Dao master. The worst factor was that they were afraid of dying on the battlefield because they would not live long anyway. The situation was incredibly bad for Emperor Zhao's camp. Fortunately, the national master couldn't get away from King Gu Tong. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang looked at the battle far from him, where King Gu Tong was fiercely grappling with the soothsayer. Many people were watching, but none dared to step in. The two men were rather evenly matched. It seemed that their fight would last a long time before a victor would emerge. Jian Wushuang, let me out. The voice of Gu King rang in Jian Wushuang's head. I haven't been in a battle for a long time. When you're weak, I'm weak too. Now that you're at the top level of 3-star thanks to the blood essence, I'm also much stronger and can use my secret skills. Jian Wushuang gave a small nod and focused his mind to let Gu King out. Soon, a scarlet light glimmered from the mysterious scarlet crack in his arm and a large body appeared in the void. Gu King was covered in terrifying reddish-brown scales and equipped with numerous tentacles. He was so large that he seemed to fill up the space around him. However, due to Jian Wushuang's influence, Gu King's body was smaller compared to when he was in the Stellar Fog Sea. Back in the Stellar Fog Sea, the body of Gu King was so large that he could form a huge island. However, he was now only 100 feet long. Even so, he was still a terrifying sight due to his ferocious appearance and the horrible killing intent. His killing intent was incredibly potent. Jian Wushuang, work with me. Gu King's voice rang again. Jian Wushuang had skyrocketed to 10 feet high and his skin had turned dark golden. Standing on Gu King's massive head, he asked, how? You know how to use the 3 secret skills of ancient gods. Just exert the mind-controlling secret skill with all your strength, said Gu King. Got it. Jian Wushuang nodded solemnly. Ready, Gu King instructed. Go. Jian Wushuang's eyes glinted as he used the mind-controlling secret skill that he had already prepared. He used the skill at full strength, amplified by the ancient god power at the top level of 3-star as well as the divergent blood stone. It felt as if thousands of sharp spikes pierced into his consciousness. Simultaneously, Gu King lifted his head. While Jian Wushuang was using his skill, there was also a violent aura surging from Gu King's body. Plenilun's secret skill, roar. Frighteningly vicious currents swirled in the air. Gu King then opened his bloody mouth and took a deep breath before letting out an earth-shattering roar. The roar was so violent that everything between heaven and earth trembled. Hoot! The sharp and intense roar rocked everything in the world, even time and space. The sound waves caused ripples to form in the void in front of Gu King. These ripples rapidly expanded before finally shrouding the entire battlefield. On the battlefield, the experts from both camps were still engaged in a fierce battle. In fact, one side was obviously prevailing over the other. Under the leadership of the Immortal Army, the camp of Emperor Leng and the Xia clan was madly chasing after the Dao masters of Emperor Zhao's camp, the casualties of which were heavy. Then, the roar resounded. What? The Dao masters all turned toward the direction of which the roar came from. What's that? They all saw Gu King's massive body but could not recognize what it was. The roar resounded again and the waves of ripples also subsequently spread. The ripples contained the horrible sound wave attack formed by the secret skills that Plenilun Centipede, Gu King used. They also carried the consciousness attack formed by the mind-controlling secret skills that Jian Wushuang used. The perfect match between the two had created this fearsome attack. This was the Plenilun's roar, as well as the ancient god's wrath. Chapter 945, Overturning the Situation. Chapter 945, Overturning the Situation. The ripples that carried the sound wave attack and consciousness attack covered the entire battlefield, passing through it at an alarming rate. Obviously, the ripples didn't affect the Dao masters in Emperor Zhao's camp. Meanwhile, the ripples stopped the hundreds of Dao masters of the Immortal Army who had rushed to the forefront of the battlefield. Their bodies shook violently and many bled from their mouths, noses, eyes, and ears. The ripples then swept over Emperor Leng's holy guards and other experts of the Xia clan. Most of them groaned in pain and several even had blood flowing out of their 7 orifices. The ripples continued to sweep through the entire battlefield but soon vanished into thin air. The battlefield, even the entire world, was shrouded in sheer silence. The next moment, in the most central part of the battlefield, over at Emperor Leng and the Xia clan's side. Whoosh! 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 Many bodies fell to the ground like raindrops. Soon, nearly 100 bodies lined the ground. Most bodies belonged to the members of the Immortal Army. Only 3 Dao masters of the camp, which originally boasted of exactly 100 Dao masters, were left after the attack. Aside from those who died in the hands of the experts aligned to Emperor Zhao earlier, the rest were killed by the ripples and fell to the ground. The ripples had slaughtered nearly 100 Dao masters. Impossible! The roar shook the entire world. The experts of the Xia clan, especially Xia Tao and Xia Ming, were both horrified and furious. Their emotions were also running wild. Their clan had spent so much time, energy, and money building their immortal army. Now, nearly 100 of their Dao masters had been killed just like that. The remaining 3 of the army were also physically and mentally hurt and had almost lost their fighting power. The entire immortal army had been wiped out in such a short time. This is... The Dao masters in Emperor Zhao's camp were also stunned and turned to look at the source of the ripples. Jian Wushuang. Emperor Zhao recognized the person standing atop Gu King's head at a glance, even though Jian Wushuang's body had expanded and his skin had turned dark golden. It's Jian Wushuang. That little bastard had united with the exotic beast. The Xia clansman glared at Jian Wushuang in anger. That little bastard is still alive? Xia Tao roared. He had lost his son, Xia Meng, in this war. It was Gu Tong who trampled and killed Xia Meng. Now the immortal army, which their clan had built at great costs, was also destroyed. Such a huge loss. His loss was too great for him to bear. That bastard is responsible for everything that happened today. If not for him, Meng would have lived to marry Leng Rushuang. The marriage alliance between our clan and Emperor Leng would have also been successful. Everything was supposed to go as planned, but that little bastard ruined everything. Xia Tao glowered at Jian Wushuang with enmity and anger. Little bastard, I'll kill you. With his fierce scream, a horrible killing intent burst out of Xia Tao's body. He was like a raging lion as he threw himself in Jian Wushuang's direction. His surging killing intent soon enveloped Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, who stood atop Gu Qing's head, was shocked when he saw the situation of the battlefield. Gu Qing, did you cause all this with your roar? He asked in shock. Of course, Gu Qing answered. However, your consciousness attack also played a part. But it's also because the Dao Masters of the Immortal Army aren't real Dao Masters. Not real Dao Masters? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Those Dao Masters must have become Dao Master by using a vicious secret skill at a great price. But their type is even weaker than those who rely on Bodidan pills. They're actually at the level of Eternal Realm in nature. Gu Qing sneered. The secret skill I used is an ordinary skill, but it's a sound wave attack and covers a wide range. More importantly, it's combined with your consciousness attack. Your consciousness attack targeted them first, which few of them could resist. Then, my sound waves shattered their life cores after they lose their ability to react. It's that simple. I see, Jian Wushuang said. It was no wonder only the immortal army had been destroyed, but Emperor Leng's holy guards and several of the real Dao masters of the Xia clan survived. Emperor Zhao's camp had been nearly defeated, but with the annihilation of the immortal army, the situation was instantly reversed, and it was all thanks to Jian Wushuang. The experts in Emperor Zhao's camp rejoiced. With the immortal army destroyed, the next step is to deal with the remaining Dao masters of the Xia clan, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Just then, he happened to see Xia Tao coming toward him with heinous killing intent. Xia Tao, master of the Xia clan, is a Dao master at rank 3 and close to the top of rank 3. Jian Wushuang carried the Blood Mountain sword in hand, which carried a power much stronger than before. Next to him, the ninth heaven sword formation formed by 12 1-meter swords had already materialized. Jian Wushuang's battle-intent sword. Get ready, King Gu said. Okay, Jian Wushuang said. Shoo. Gu Qing's body, which was hundreds of meters long, sprang toward the enemy at lightning speed, all while emanating a horrible aura. Then, Jian Wushuang jumped out. Bang! Gu Qing stopped in front of Xia Tao and then turned his giant body, shooting his tentacles at Xia Tao like they were thousands of vicious snakes. Get off me! Xia Tao shouted. He swiped Gu Qing with his giant axe. Gu Qing's tentacles were cut in half. However, Gu Qing opened his mouth and scarlet gas spurted out. Chapter 946, The Decrepit Old Man. Chapter 946, The Decrepit Old Man. Not only did the scarlet mist smell disgusting, but it also corroded the world at a maddening pace. Soon, it completely enveloped Xia Tao's body. Poison. Xia Tao's expression shifted as he sensed that the scarlet mist was corroding his body. The rate of corrosion was extremely slow because of his physical strength, but the mist also blocked his sight and consciousness. Clang! A lavender flowing light spun madly like a rapidly rotating awl and struck his head with a sharp and harsh sound. Xia Tao snorted and raised the giant axe in his hands. The heaven-shattering momentum rose along with his movement. This giant axe was like a weapon of the gods that dominated heaven and earth. He wielded it with wrath. Clang! Following the ringing of metal colliding, the void shattered into smithereens. Xia Tao's face darkened and he could not help retreating to the rear because of the strong brisance. The rapidly rotating all paused for a mere moment in front of him before landing on his head with an alarming speed. How is that possible? Xia Tao looked in front of him in surprise. It was Jian Wushuang, the owner of the Lavender All. However, Jian Wushuang was obviously just an Eternal Realm expert. Xia Tao was a real rank 3 Dao master, almost the peak of rank 3. How could I end up being the inferior one in this confrontation? Is the power of the Lavender All really that strong? He did not know that Jian Wushuang had already absorbed the strength of King Luozhen's essence blood. Just 10% of it gave him the battle strength of a peak 3-star Imperial Kinsman Ancient God. Those in the Ancient God clan had a huge advantage in bloodline compared to ordinary warriors. The 3-star Ancient God was equivalent to the level of ordinary Dao Master. The peak of 3-star corresponded to Dao Masters in the peak of rank 3. The Imperial Kinsman Ancient God at the peak of 3-star was equivalent to Dao Masters in the peak of rank 3. Xia Tao might be close to possessing the strength of Dao Masters in the peak of rank 3, he nevertheless did not truly possess it. Naturally, Jian Wushuang was able to suppress him. Die! Jian Wushuang's eyes glinted as the bloodline power surged in his body and continuous power flowed into the Ninth Heaven Sword formation. The lavender lightsaber from the Ninth Heaven Sword formation glowed brighter and brighter, bursting out even stronger power at an even higher speed. The lavender lightsaber struck Xia Tao again and again. In addition, Gu Qing's thousands of tentacles were charging madly at Xia Tao at an incredible speed. Even if Xia Tao could chop off some of them, Gu Qing's frightening resilience meant he could make an instant recovery. How could this happen? This is impossible. Xia Tao's tone was full of shock and anger. He came here with the intention of killing Jian Wushuang to avenge his 2 sons and the immortal army. Yet, Jian Wushuang ended up completely suppressing him in their battle and throwing him into a state of panic. When the immortal army was completely annihilated on the battlefield, many of the Dao Masters on Emperor Zhao's side struck back immediately. Though the emergence of the immortal army had cost many Dao Masters on Emperor Zhao's side, their top-tier battle strength was still there. Emperor Zhao, Emperor Yun, Lord of Cirsus Island, Xue Lingtian, and Leng Rushuang were all available. Comparatively, the top-tier battle strength of the camp of Emperor Leng and the Xia clan was much worse. Xia Tao's elimination meant only Emperor Leng, Xia Ming, and the severely wounded Xia Yu were left. Moreover, Jian Wushuang and Gu Qing's bellow that killed nearly 100 Dao Masters truly frightened them. Thus, Emperor Zhao's camp enjoyed an overwhelming superiority when they began their counterattack. More than half of the 24 heavenly guards were now dead, as were many Dao Masters of the Xia clan. During the counterattack, Xue Lingtian targeted Xia Yu, the severely wounded Great Elder of Xia clan, and joined forces with Di Jing to kill him. The situation was completely reversed thanks to Jian Wushuang and Gu Qing's terrifying trick. If this goes on, my heavenly guards will all die here. Emperor Leng's eyes turned icy cold. She then shouted, Xia Tao, what about the decrepit old man of the Xia clan? Why isn't he lending a hand yet? The decrepit old man of the Xia clan. Many of the Dao Masters in Emperor Zhao's camp was startled. On the battlefield shrouded with scarlet mist, Jian Wushuang's Ninth Heaven Sword formation continued to suppress Xia Tao until the latter could barely fight back. His face darkened after hearing that. The ancestor has been practicing in isolation for a while. It's a critical time for him. His strength will be greatly improved if he can go through it. He will be able to get more benefits when carving up the thing with National Master and Emperor Leng. So, he told us not to disturb him unless it's an emergency. Xia Tao hesitated momentarily before making his decision. The purpose of the ancestors' retreat is to get more benefits from National Master and Emperor Leng. If Emperor Zhao's camp defeats National Master and Emperor Leng today, the ancestor and the Xia clan will get nothing. Given the circumstances. Xia Tao gritted his teeth and a token immediately showed up in his hand. He then crushed the token. The moment the token was crushed, a statue inside a secret chamber underneath Xia clan's camp billion of miles away reacted. The stones that covered the statue shattered, revealing a silver-haired elder. The man was slim and had a pair of sword-shaped eyebrows that framed his face. With a twitch of his eyebrows, he opened his eyes and a red light glinted in his pupils. Suddenly, a dark flame appeared in front of him. The flame kept burning in the void without ever going out. The silver-haired elder waved his hand and the void cracked open. That crack was connected to the token that Xia Tao had crushed on the battlefield. The next moment, he threw himself into the crack. Buzz! The silver-haired elder showed up out of thin air on the battlefield and stood next to Xia Tao. The moment he showed up, the ninth heaven sword formation manipulated by Jian Wushuang struck him like a thunderbolt. The silver-haired elder narrowed his eyes. Humph! His snort seemed to contain the will of heaven and earth. Following this, the ninth heaven sword formation flew backward and the endless scarlet mist dissipated in an instant. Chapter 947, Celestial Master. Chapter 947, Celestial Master. What? Jian Wushuang steadied himself and looked at the silver-haired elder who had made a sudden appearance in front of him. Jian Wushuang possessed the strength of an imperial kinsman ancient god at the peak of the 3-star level, strong enough to suppress even Xia Tao with his ninth heaven sword formation. Yet, this old man's snort alone had sent his formation flying. What kind of strength was that? Jian Wushuang, be careful. This person ought to be a rank 4 Dao master. Gu Qing's voice resounded inside him. Rank 4 Dao master. Jian Wushuang was stunned. There are only 3 ranks for Dao master, aren't there? There are 4 of them, but those in rank 4 are so much stronger than those in rank 3 that no one actually refers to them as such. People call them the Celestial Masters. Gu Qing said. Celestial Master. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Holy Master is the supreme level among Dao Masters, and this level isn't something that you can achieve by opening up the 4th way. It needs other conditions, so only very few talents actually reach this level. Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and Emperor Leng are only one step away from Holy Master, and can even be called halfway Holy Masters. However, they're still not real Holy Masters at the end of the day. However, the one in front of you is a real Celestial Master. Gu Qing said seriously. Of course, Celestial Masters are strong but they're nowhere near as powerful as the National Master and King Gu Tong. Those two have already surpassed the level of Dao Masters. Really? Jian Wushuang was left breathless after hearing that. The level of Holy Masters was indeed the supreme level out of all the levels for Dao Masters. While Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and Emperor Leng were top-tier Dao Masters, they were merely in the peak of rank 3. They could barely be called halfway Holy Masters and were much inferior compared to the real thing. Thus, the silver-haired elder in front of him was much stronger than Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and Emperor Leng. The Dao Masters fighting on the battlefield also noticed the silver-haired elder's arrival. The faces of those in Emperor Zhao's camp darkened with hostility. The ancestor of the Xia clan. It's him. To think that the decrepit old man would still be in the Xia clan after disappearing for so many years. Voices filled with fear resounded one after another. Xia Yong. Emperor Zhao's expression was exceptionally dark. He was well aware of the strength of the ancestor of the Xia clan. The kingdom Tang of the eastern land might be able to suppress the clan when it was at its peak with Emperor Qing assuming personal command. After all, Emperor Qing's strength alone was almost comparable to that of the Emperor of Tang, who in turn was much stronger than the ancestor of the Xia clan. Ever since Emperor Qing died and Emperor of Tang disappeared years ago, no one in the entire country could rival the ancestor of the Xia clan. That was the reason for the explosive growth of the clan's power. Even Emperor Leng had to form an alliance with them through a political marriage. The reason for all of this was the ancestor of the Xia clan, Xia Yong. Xia Yong stood calmly in the void, his eyes focused on another battlefield in the distance. National Master. There's another person. Is it the legendary ancient god clan? Xia Yong was a little taken aback when he heard the horrifying sounds coming from the other battlefield. Despite being a holy master, he dared not to get involved in a fierce battle like that. Ancestor. Great Elder Xia Yu is dead, as is a couple of our Dao masters. That includes my son, Xia Mang. The immortal army is also wiped out. Xia Tao, who stood next to Xia Yong, said. Xia Yong narrowed his eyes. It's him. It's all because of this little bastard. He's the one who caused all this mess. Xia Tao pointed at Jian Wushuang, looking a little crazed. Oh. Xia Yong glanced at Jian Wushuang with hostility. Then, a whooshing resounded. He pounced on Jian Wushuang as his body turned illusory. Oh no. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Retreat, now. Gu King shouted. Jian Wushuang retreated as quickly as he could. Not far away, two people were equally shocked to see Xia Yong attacking Jian Wushuang. One of them was Jian Wushuang's senior brother, Xue Lingtian. The other was Len Rushuang. They immediately rushed toward Jian Wushuang without hesitation. Damn it, he's too fast. I can't escape. Jian Wushuang turned to look at Xia Yong, who was close on his heels. He put on an expression of grim-faced determination. If I can't run, I'll fight. There was also a trace of madness that flitted across Jian Wushuang's face. His ninth heaven sword formation was drawing power at a maddening pace, including a divine thunder. It was promptly spat out. Ridiculous. Xia Yong snorted and waved once. The ninth heaven sword formation flew backward again. A blast of enormous power struck Jian Wushuang at the same time. Puff! Blood spewed from Jian Wushuang's mouth and his face immediately turned pale. Xia Yong was about to attack again and kill Jian Wushuang. But right then, a sharp knife essence made him its target. Xia Yong looked at the void near him in surprise. There, a scarlet-robed Xue Lingtian emanating such potent killing intent that it was as if he had bathed in a bloody sea. Xia Yong saw him raise his saber. The sharp knife essence had originated from this saber. That saber, Xia Yong narrowed his eyes. He could sense that the saber in Xue Lingtian's hand was so extraordinary that no ordinary emperor weapon was its rival. Not even a top-tier emperor weapon could emit such a strong killing intent. Interesting. Xia Yong smiled and stood there waiting for Xue Lingtian's sword light. Xue Lingtian's face was a little warped as he accumulated power in his saber. This was the strongest move he could make so far. He simultaneously triggered a secret skill contained in the saber at the risk of sustaining grievous injuries. This saber was from his master Xian Yi. The secret skill contained in the saber was certainly extraordinary. Finally, the power accumulating in his saber came to a peak. Xue Lingtian then swung his saber downward with a terrifying roar. The blade light swept through the void and cleaved it in half. Chapter 948, Seething in Anger. Chapter 948, Seething in Anger. The icy-cold saber shadow hissed as it crossed the ninth heaven. Xue Lingtian stood amidst the storm with a bloodied face and a pair of eyes brimming with madness and determination. This move was his best. He had placed all of his energy into it without regarding the consequences. This was also the best he could do for his junior brother. The blade light seemed capable of piercing all the sharp aura. Even Xia Yong was forced to move. Not bad. Xia Yong nodded but subsequently extended his hands to reveal the dry and somewhat yellowed skin on his palms. Two strange powers were fusing on his palms. One was a raging and scorching power while the other was calm and stately. The two distinctive powers were perfectly combined in Xia Yong's palms. Open. Xia Yong struck at the void in front of him. This move sent tremor down the whole world and the cracked space began to rapidly spread. Before Shuelingtian's strong blade light could get close to Xia Yong, a giant palm print that harbored two distinct powers appeared out of thin air. The palm print that seemed to harbor all the force of the world struck the blade light. Boom! A fierce roar sounded, accompanied by a horrifying power that spread in all directions. Shuelingtian, who stood in the core of this power, felt his hands shaking. Then, at the next moment, his saber was instantly flung away. Scram! Xia Yong waved his sleeves and his horrible power immediately formed a huge palm print that bombarded Shuelingtian. Shuelingtian trembled violently as he coughed up blood thrice. His body was thrown backward like a cannonball being fired. Senior brother. Jian Wushuang was shocked. I'm sorry, junior brother. I tried my best. When Shuelingtian's sad laughter reached Jian Wushuang's ears, he saw the former's body crashing onto a heap of rubble. For a moment, there was no vitality coming from Shuelingtian. Rage swept Jian Wushuang. Before he could dwell on it, however, he saw an elegant figure dressed in a white robe appearing in front of him. Leng Rushuang, he said, a little stunned. White airflow wrapped Leng Rushuang's entire body and she emitted a freezing aura. This was the consequence of the complete unraveling of the seal in her body. I'll never allow anyone to hurt him. Her voice carried unprecedented firmness and determination. The white airflow bounced on her right hand like white flames, but these flames were freezing cold. When Xia Yong had seriously injured Shuelingtian and once again pounced on Jian Wushuang, Leng Rushuang's eyes glinted as she unleashed her freezing aura. Die! Following her scream, the white airflow around her condensed into an adult-sized white flame in the shape of a sword. It flew out as soon as it took shape. The sword left a trail of white sprays as it made a sudden appearance in front of Xia Yong. Xia Yong could feel the terrifying freezing aura of the sword as it aimed for him. He swung his dry and yellow palms and blocked the sword with his perfectly fused twin powers. Boom! The sword snapped into two, leaking a mass of white flames. What? When Xia Yong looked at his right palm, he could see a hint of whiteness on it. More importantly, the speck of whiteness was rapidly spreading all over his palm at an incredible speed. What a horrible poison! Though he was shocked, he quickly gathered himself and shook his palms. His twin powers then charged toward the white area and took only a short moment to disperse it. Leng Rushuang's icy heart poison was indeed dreadful and could be considered the top poison through the ages. However, Xia Yong was a celestial master. He could still dispel the little amount of it with ease. You're Emperor Leng's daughter. Xia Yong was cold and brusque. You should have married Xia Meng. Since he's now dead, you should join him in the afterlife. Xia Yong wasn't at all concerned about the fact that she was Emperor Leng's daughter. He gripped his right hand, once again melding the two distinct powers. He made another move all of a sudden. It was even more powerful this time. Stop, Leng Rushuang. Retreat now. Now! Jian Wushuang wasn't far behind her and began shouting at her like a madman when he noticed Xia Yong's killing intent. However, there was a touch of determination on Leng Rushuang's pretty face. She heard Jian Wushuang's warning but had no intention of retreating. After all, Jian Wushuang was not far behind her. Buzz! The endless white airflow took the shape of a light cocoon around her. Bang! Xia Yong landed a palm attack on the white light cocoon and his horrible power instantly erupted. The white light cocoon managed to put a resistance due to its uncommon power, but it was fleeting. Crack! The light cocoon cracked open to reveal Leng Rushuang. Xia Yong's powerful palm print continued to charge ahead and ended up hitting her directly. Jian Wushuang! Leng Rushuang uttered a shrill scream. Run! Boom! Xia Yong's palm landed on Leng Rushuang. She felt a jolt running through her body and coughed up blood, the blood staining her white robe and beautiful hair. She fell down like a kite that was cut loose. On her way down, she turned ever so slightly to look in Jian Wushuang's direction and opened her mouth a little. She didn't make any sound and merely mouthed the words. Jian Wushuang could read her lips as she mouthed the words, "I don't regret it." He watched her body fall down in the void with an empty gaze until he read her lips. Boom! It felt as if thousands of thunderbolts struck his mind. His expression immediately turned crazed. Arg! Xia Yong, I'm going to kill you. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned bloody as his hair danced crazily around his head. He let out a bellow that could tear apart the ninth heaven and destroy the firmament. This bellow contained his madness and wrath. It contained his determination to avenge his loved ones even if it meant destroying the world and sacrificing everything including his life. This was the most furious bellow Jian Wushuang had made since he was born. His sorrow and rage were so apparent in his voice that it was enough to make the world tremble. This time, Jian Wushuang was truly seething in anger. Chapter 949, The Outbreak of 30% of the Blood Essence. Chapter 949, The Outbreak of 30% of the Blood Essence. Jian Wushuang's roar reached all corners of the battlefield and enveloped the entire imperial palace. Everyone who heard him felt a similar jolt down their spirits and their expressions were one of terror. Jian Wushuang. Gu Qing immediately turned to look at Jian Wushuang. He felt the bloodline power within Jian Wushuang's body once again reaching for the drop of blood essence from King Luo Zhen after Jian Wushuang absorbed 10% of it. In a split second, Jian Wushuang had already absorbed 20% of the blood essence. In addition to the first 10% earlier, Jian Wushuang had taken in a whopping 30% of the power of the blood essence. Damn it! Gu Qing felt despair. Jian Wushuang was wasting whatever he absorbed from the blood essence that King Luo Zhen left behind. He already found it to be such a great waste when Jian Wushuang engulfed 10% of the blood essence, but now the latter had engulfed 30%. Buzz! The bloodline power burst wildly out of Jian Wushuang's body. His red and icy cold eyes made him a nightmare to look at. Under the cover of the bloodline power, his ancient god power began growing at a frantic speed. The fourth star was swiftly forming on his mid-brows, joining the other three quadrangular stars there. Now fully formed, the fourth star began to emanate an exceptionally bright dark golden light. It even seemed like a fifth star would be forming, but the light eventually stagnated. Top 4-star Imperial Ancient God. High up in the void, Jian Wushuang's human body had enlarged to become a dark golden ancient god body that was 10 feet tall. Lightning bolts flashed madly in his similarly colored pupils, reflecting his intense anger. A killing aura so strong that it was enough to strike fear in the gods of the ninth heavens rose from within him. I want all of your Xia clansmen to die alongside Leng Rushuang. Jian Wushuang's roar left his mouth like a fearsome storm, and just as promptly, he also made his move in the massive ancient god body. Clang! 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 Jian Wushuang used his massive feet to tread on earth, his every step causing explosions in the ground. He then stopped and stood still in the void, accompanied by endless anger and murderous aura. He covered the gray-haired old man with indifferent eyes entirely in his shadow. Everyone who detected this murderous aura, including Xia Yong the Holy Master, all experienced a change in their expressions. 3 fingers of the ancient god, 1 pointer to destroy the world. Jian Wushuang bellowed, his roar appearing to have emerged from the 9 serenities. Simultaneously, he felt the expanding ancient god power from his body flowing toward his right hand at a startling speed. The majestic ancient god power condensed in his palm. He then made a pointing motion. Boom! A massive spiraling tunnel appeared inside the boundless void out of the blue. It was as if doomsday had descended on them when the 1,000-feet-wide tunnel appeared in the void. Inside this spiraling tunnel was a massive golden finger that emanated a force that stifled all living things in the world. This finger appeared to have been extended from ancient times. Boundless and imposing, it carried a force that was capable of destroying the world. The moment it appeared, the vast heaven and earth seemed to have come to deathly stillness. This was the 3 fingers of the ancient god. Back when Jian Wushuang awakened the ancient god blood within him, he also awakened a part of the ancient god's memories and thus, inherited the latter's unique skill. Even though this unique skill was capable of unleashing an earth-shattering power, Jian Wushuang's body had always been too weak to make full use of the skill. However, Jian Wushuang was able to temporarily enhance the ancient god power in him to the peak of 4-star level thanks to the drop of blood essence in him. It allowed him to finally unleash the full might of the unique skill. He pointed with his finger, producing the earth-shattering power that forced even Xia Yong to move. In the next moment, a terrifying power exploded in the space next to him. One of the dual powers was hot and violent as if it could scorch the world. The other one was majestic and boundless. Even though they were evidently 2 different kinds of powers, they melded perfectly on Xia Yong's hands. Secret skill. Heterodox true form. Light flared inside Xia Yong's pupils and in the next moment, he retaliated by sending a palm flying toward the void in front of him. The 2 different kinds of powers exploded, forming a particularly malevolent exotic beast that was 100 feet tall. The beast emanated an unimaginably frightening aura as it lifted its head and roared. Then, it ran straight into the golden finger. This collision felt like the collision of 2 worlds. It caused a massive uproar. The terrifying aftermath swiftly spread, forcing the Dao masters on the battlefield backward. A hint of madness peeked from Jian Wushuang's red eyes as he stood in the center of the collision. He bellowed and his might, already so terrifyingly strong, once again heightened. Kaboom! The terrifying might caused the exotic beast to collapse to the ground. Even Xia Yong was thrown backward by 100 miles. Something's wrong with this youngster. Once Xia Yong regained firm footing, he stared at Jian Wushuang with a pair of steely eyes. He was certain that Jian Wushuang was hiding a secret in his body. Otherwise, there was no way an Eternal Realm dweller could produce such explosive power. Suddenly, he turned his hand over and a green ancient sledgehammer appeared on his palm out of thin air. There was a layer of dark radiance that enveloped the surface of the sledgehammer, enough to frighten those who look at it. It's been many years since I last fought. I didn't expect that I'd be forced to use all of my strength when I fight again and that my opponent would a nobody in the Eternal Realm. Xia Yong muttered to himself, gripping the sledgehammer in his hand. A force so strong that it could easily crush the void was rapidly gathering in the sledgehammer. Jian Wushuang, who stood opposite to Xia Yong, once again stepped forward. This time, his momentum and murderous aura reached new heights. The 2nd finger of the ancient god, star extinguishing. His earth-shattering roar reverberated in the void. Inside the majestic storm formed out of stars, blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. He appeared crazed as an endless stream of ancient god power frantically flowed into the finger on his right hand. He had demonstrated the 2nd part of the top unique skill of the ancient god clan. 3 fingers of the ancient god, the 1st finger had the power to break barriers. The 2nd finger had the power to extinguish stars. Yet another empty space appeared in the void above the imperial palace. The empty space began to frantically spread, mercilessly engulfing the gravel and dust that were flying in the air above the imperial palace. Then, a huge monster appeared out of nowhere in the center of the empty space. This was a towering illusory figure of an ancient god. The illusory figure was 10,000 feet tall. The impressively tall figure was a whopping 10 times larger than Gu King Tong, who was locked in a fierce battle with the national master. The illusory figure seemed to have stepped out of ancient times and what was visible now was merely a part of his body. Even so, his appearance was already shocking enough. Power gathered in the finger of the massive and tall illusory figure of an ancient god. It then made a pointing motion. The 2nd finger of the ancient god was about to be unleashed. Chapter 950, Power to Shatter the World. Chapter 950, power to shatter the world. The massively tall illusory figure of the ancient god pointed its earth-shattering finger. At the same time, a layer of gold light descended. Wherever the light traveled, there would be explosion after explosion ringing in the void. Its finger had yet to fall entirely, but there was already terrifying aftermath spreading in all directions at a frantic speed. Xia Yong stood in front of the enormous finger with a grim expression on his wizened face. He then unleashed his holy master might. The secret skill of the universe. Monster slaying. His twin set of forces had risen to their peak. The green sledgehammer in his hand was shaking violently, emanating a majestic might. Endless power gathered on his yellow palm, and immediately his palm turned entirely red. Following the sharp increase in the size of the sledgehammer in his hand, Xia Yong charged at the finger in the void. His attack detonated the entire world. The explosion shattered the void into smithereens. Above it, terrifying aftermath rippled. These ripples surged toward the finger in succession, swiftly weakening its power. Huge amounts of the ancient god power imbued in the finger dissipated in all directions. By the time the finger truly came into contact with the sledgehammer, the former had already had its power reduced by 90%. However, the rest of the power had thoroughly exploded. Following the massive explosion, a stifled groan came out of Xia Yong's mouth. He was forced to take 3 steps backward in retreat, each step spanning 100 miles. How is possible that I'm at a disadvantage? Xia Yong appeared stunned. He had unleashed all of his holy master might. In fact, he had even used his strongest secret skill. Yet, he was still forced backward by Jian Wushuang's second pointer and reduced into a state of disadvantage. Just then, Jian Wushuang, whose face was so warped that it was hard to tell it was him, bellowed once again. He patted his chest, forced the blood essence out of his body. He gripped the blood essence firmly in his hand. With a pair of eyes that harbored an unprecedented level of madness, he once again pointed at Xia Yong. The third finger of the ancient god, world-shattering. Boom! He abruptly triggered the boundless ancient god power. The third finger of the ancient god originated from the inheritance that Jian Wushuang awakened. It was something that he knew how to use the moment he awakened those memories, but unfortunately, he was not equipped with the strength to unleash its true might. Things were different now. Since engulfing the 30% of the ancient god power in the blood essence and reaching the peak of the 4-star level, he was able to unleash its full power, even if just barely. Before the illusory figure of the ancient god hovering in the empty space in the void could fully dissipate, Jian Wushuang's action caused the figure to begin solidifying again. This time, it became so solid that it appeared almost tangible. Simultaneously, he had taken a step forward with his other feet. His feet had solidified into a tangible form. There was only half of the illusory figure in the beginning, yet it was now complete. The now complete illusory figure now emanated an aura that was many times stronger than when Jian Wushuang made his second move. Go to hell. Jian Wushuang's hair was windswept as he let out a crazed roar. His roar shocked the hearts and minds of every martial artist present. It was a kind of fear that struck deep into their souls. Under everyone's intense gaze, a shocking radiant light burst out of the eyes of the enormously tall illusory figure. Then, it once again pointed at Xia Yong. This action immediately broke the barrier, extinguished the stars, and shattered the world. This action harbored a shockingly terrifying might. This action also carried Jian Wushuang's unprecedented anger. This action even contained his endless love for Leng Rushuang. This was his anger toward the crown and his revenge for Leng Rushuang and his senior brother. Boom! The terrifying pointing motion surged madly to the sky, crushing everything that stood between heaven and earth. A shocked expression crossed Xia Yong's wizened face as he stood underneath the finger. There's an even stronger move from him. He was panicking. This was the first time in the many years since he became a holy master that he felt fear. That was merely the second finger earlier. Even though he managed to block it, he was nevertheless forced to use his full strength and eventually forced into a state of disadvantage. The third finger was now several times stronger than the second. Even though it was him, he could not help feeling as if he would be unable to block this attack. Xia Yong snorted coldly, his gaze once again taking on a crazed quality. I don't believe that an eternal realm dweller like you can really cause such trouble. Come at me. Xia Yong's expression turned exceptionally malevolent as he bellowed again and again. His terrifying holy master power was once again concentrated in his hand. The differing twin forces in his body climbed to a peak. Xia Yong made his move. He remained as domineering as ever as he swung his sledgehammer. It was his strongest swing, containing his pride as a holy master expert and confidence in his strength. This swing contained a strength that was capable of flattening the world. The enormous golden finger that was capable of destroying the world and the sledgehammer that was capable of flattening the world hovered in the void. They collided. Buzz! Strange aftermath ripples began spreading, continuously absorbing the power imbued in the finger. However, the golden finger effortlessly slammed through all obstacles and collided with the sledgehammer in a flash. Bam! The world seemed to crash around them. Kaboom! The terrifying might formed a storm of power that emanated great pressure. Xia Yong stood under the storm of power with his eyes narrowed. His gray and long hair were billowed around him and his clothes were all tattered. However, his gaze harbored a never-before-seen madness. This is impossible. Impossible. I'm a holy master who is considered unparalleled in the ancient world. How can I lose to an eternal world dweller like you? I refuse to believe it. Bellows of madness came out of Xia Yong's mouth without ceasing. His face was now a terrifying shade of red. The two forces madly collided, wand suppressed each other. For a moment, there was no clear victory. Swoosh! Just then, an enormous figure of red appeared next to Xia Yong and spoke in a cold yet unusually deep voice. You old little thing, did you forget about me? Chapter 951, Alive. Chapter 951, Alive. What? Xia Yong jumped, startled by Gu King who was beside him. Gu King's former body was tens of meters long. But it had grown into a slithery mass tenfold longer than before, with a sharp increase in strength as Jian Wushuang absorbed 30% of blood essence power and had 4 stars agglomerated between his eyebrows. By now, Gu King's massive trunk coiled not far away from Xia Yong, his jaws baring in a wide and wicked grin. The divine rays of the 9 tunes technique of the Plenilun's secret skills. Gu King emitted a deafening howl. His wide-opened mouth glowed brightly in red with bloodthirsty malice and he hurled himself towards Xia Yong. Swish! The red glow flaring from his mouth formed a streaking crimson flash as it shot straight at Xia Yong at great speeds, aiming at the latter's head. This is bad. Panic and fear instantly swept across Xia Yong's mangled face. Overcome by horror, he staggered backward. Xia Yong managed to keep himself out of the way of the flaming serpentine behemoth charging at him, but his lurch backward was also his undoing. It had sent him into the path of Jian Wushuang's finger, the world-shattering technique. Die, Xia Yong, you filthy mongrel! Jian Wushuang's roar echoed loudly. Rumble! The finger technique that could shatter even the foundations of the world has appeared. The world-shattering technique. A gigantic finger of gold struck heavily upon Xia Yong, releasing the powerful ancient god power contained within its stroke. No! Xia Yong gave a terrifying shriek, his eyes utterly wide with shock as the gargantuan finger of gold crushed down on him. The golden finger pushed and flattened Xia Yong, delving deep into the ground. Bang! A huge crater was formed where the golden finger had struck. A huge hole was in the center of the crater where the finger had burrowed, growing larger as the huge force continued tunneling downwards. The grounds began to shake and the sky began to tremble. But everything fell into a pale and deathly silence. The entire surrounding had been engulfed by a huge and strong cyclonic turbulence of raw energy. So great and terrible was the tempestuous storm of crude energies that even the Tao masters from both sides of the battle panicked and retreated at once. It was only when the storm had ended did anyone dare to venture a slight peek. But the quick peek rendered everyone stunned. The great and majestic royal palace was no more. What remained at where it stood before was but a wide and frightening pit, which depths extended far into the unknown reaches of the darkness. The site where the entire royal city had once stood had been reduced into a bottomless abyss. Deep at the bottom of the pit, there was nothing but ruins and rubble. Stunning! The same sensation of amazement and awe crept into the hearts of everyone present. Suddenly, a jet of blood-red stream shot from the bottom of the pit. One could hardly miss the vestiges of life in it, albeit panic and hysterical, as the blood-red jet escaped from the pit and flew towards the encampment of the Xia clan. The blood-red stream fell into a blob of bloody mass beside Xia Tao before it formed into the figure of a person. The person has hair of snowy white, despite having a few remaining grey and silvery hairs which were once testament of his youth and vigor. His face turned gnarled and wrinkled as if the long years his toil and torments of life have caught up with him. His dry and rumpled skin was drenched in blood. But most disheartening of all, was his aura. It was feeble and pitiful. So feeble that it was not even the strength of a Tao master. These were the signs of one who had death looming over him. But everyone around him was gripped by fear and horror, for they had identified him, Xia Yong, the ancestor of the Xia clan. The greatest warrior of the entire Xia clan. Ancestor! The host of warriors of the Xia clan were startled and angered at the wretched state rendered to their ancestor, Xia Yong. Xia Yong had always remained as a legend even amongst the folk of their kin. A legend who had always been unbeatable and indomitable against foes of any kind. Even the Tang Empire of the East, during their golden age where the four great emperors reigned as one, had to fear their influence and might due to the dominance of their ancestor, Xia Yong. Yet, who would have expected that the living legend of the Xia clan had been battered to such insignificance? The foe whom their ancestor was fighting against was but a mere warrior of the Eternal Realm. How did a warrior of the Eternal Realm pummel a holy master into such a wreck? How was this even possible? It was the very same questions looming in the minds of everyone present. Xia Yong's face was flushed with a burning red shade that he looked as if he could almost bleed from his face. His hateful stare remained transfixed upon the center of the huge pit from whence he emerged. A figure appeared from the depths. That was a lumbering giant, towering at more than tens of meters tall. His skin glazed with a golden blush and underneath his feet was a worm beast more than hundreds of meters long with countless tendrils that exuded a powerful and staggering presence. That mongrel pup, to think that I have nearly fallen by his hands. Xia Yong clenched his fists tightly with hatred as his eyes burned with rage. Standing over the gargantuan trunk of Gu King, the resentment that filled Jian Wushuang had barely diminished. Embers of anger still burned in his golden eyes which were trained at Xia Yong's direction. That stroke earlier did not kill him. Jian Wushuang thought bitterly. That must be a quaint and unique technique that he used to save himself. But it must surely have come at a terrible price. Look at him. Look at how weakened he is now. He will never regain his power, not in tens of thousands of years, or even longer. Gu King's voice rumbled in his mind. The greater one was, the harder one fell, and it would be harder still for that one to climb back up. This was like King Gu Tong who had been seriously injured and his power diminished. For many years he had been trying to regain his strength as he chose to remain only within the confines of the stronghold of the ancient sect. But for so long, he had merely regained 1/10 of his former strength. Xia Yong must die. Jian Wushuang's eyes flared with contempt and hate. But he had only begun to move when his body shook and convulsed suddenly with pain. He vomited a huge mouthful of blood as a strong, stabbing agony rose from the deepest parts of his body. This is madness, Jian Wushuang. The Gu King warned frantically, "The essence blood of King Luo Zhen is a most potent substance that bestows upon you powers way beyond that of yours for a short duration. But the price that follows its use is hardly one that you can easily bear. Look at you now. You are at your limits. There is no way you can continue fighting. Retreat for now." "Never." Jian Wushuang howled with anger, his eyes gleaming in red. Much of his consciousness and sanity have left him, eroded by immeasurable bloodthirstiness and rage. "This ends today. I will slay Xia Yong and completely decimate the entire Xia clan even if it costs my life. This is for Leng Rushuang." There was nothing but steely resolve in his voice that thundered across the land. With all the consciousness and strength he could muster, he set his aims for the essence blood of King Luo Zhen. He intended to consume more essence blood to further enhance himself. "Don't be rash, Jian Wushuang. Calm yourself. Your lover, she is still alive." Jian Wushuang froze instantly where he stood as the Gu King's frantic pleas reverberated continuously in his mind. Chapter 952, Refuse to Yield. Chapter 952, Refuse to Yield. Alive? Jian Wushuang froze with disbelief. "She is still alive. See for yourself." Gu King cried at him. His gaze turned instinctively towards Leng Rushuang who was gliding in the air not far away. In her white flowing robes badly stained by blood, Leng Rushuang floated in the air silently. Layers of energy barriers encompassed around her. They were cast by Jian Wushuang during his battle with Xia Yong to prevent her from being struck by their blows. But now that Jian Wushuang could look closely at her, he found that she was still alive. Despite her frail and severely fragile aura, it was clear that she was hardly in mortal danger. She is really alive. A manic joy gleamed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Humph. She is the great primordial sinner. Never will she perish so easily. But she would be, if you intend to dawdle any longer. Gu King smirked, slightly peeved. Jian Wushuang calmed himself. Leng Rushuang's well-being would take precedence for now. The matter of Xia Yong would have to wait. He flew to Leng Rushuang and cradled her in his arms. Into her body, Gu King. Heal her now. Jian Wushuang urged. The healing abilities of a plenilune could restore the heal of not only itself and its host, but others as well. It was during his time with the ancient god clan when the clansman had allowed a plenilune to enter his body and heal him. Into her? Nay. I may be willing to heal any other save for her. She is the great primordial sinner. She bears the burden of heavy sacrilege. I might perish if I were to possess her. Gu King explained exasperatedly before he continued. Fret not. She will not die as long as I am present. This made Jian Wushuang felt better as he nodded wordlessly. He looked towards his senior brother, Xue Lingtian. Xue Lingtian had earlier been injured when he had tried to help Jian Wushuang. But still, his wounds were hardly serious for he was already back on his feet to begin healing himself. All is well. Senior brother is safe. Jian Wushuang exhaled in relief. He would be blaming himself for eternity if Leng Rushuang and his senior brother were to have given their lives for him. Jian Wushuang then turned and looked around the chaos surrounding him. At some distance away from him, King Gu Tong was still fighting ferociously against the national master that none could tell who was gaining the upper hand. But the battle waging around them was reaching its conclusion. The factions led by Emperor Leng and the Xia clan had assumed that victory would be theirs since Xia Yong had joined the battle. But never had they expected that the great and powerful Xia Yong would have fallen so ignominiously in the hands of Jian Wushuang, a mere warrior of the Eternal Realm. Instead, the tide of battle had tipped against their favor, with only Emperor Leng, Xia Tao, Xia Ming and few other warriors holding their front line. Still, defeat seemed inevitable. How could this be? Why is the situation so dire? This is impossible. The eyes of Emperor Leng burned red as all vestiges of composure had all but left her. Her eyes studied frantically the battle raging around her as she fought, but she could hardly suppress the dread and anxiety rising in her mind. The shame was simply impossible for her to stomach. For many years I have prepared and planned only for this moment. I simply refuse to be thwarted here. Never. I refuse to yield to this Emperor Shao. National Master. National Master. Emperor Leng howled maniacally suddenly, a shrilling cry that resounded so greatly that everyone stopped in their tracks to look at her. Farthest away, King Gu Tong was still exchanging blows furiously against the soothsayer. As a 7-star imperial god, King Gu Tong still wielded powerful strength of his own, even if his power was but a mere fraction of what it was before. Moreover, King Gu Tong had a plethora of ancient gods' secret skills at his disposal which made him an extraordinarily dangerous foe. The soothsayer was hardly a match for one so powerful and dangerous like King Gu Tong. But he had the blood-killing plate armor which had given him an edge against his opponent. The overall strength of them both were so great that they had exceeded the levels of Dao Master. Their battle was equally gritting and fierce that not even Jian Wushuang's defeat of Xia Yong could match its intensity and brutality. No one dared to approach them for fear of being caught between their blows that a ring of desolation and barrenness spanning thousands of kilometers surrounded them. The wailing shrieks of Emperor Leng reached to them, rousing the soothsayer from his bloodlust frenzy. Xia Yong had lost to a young pup. Hopeless filth. The soothsayer cursed from his heart. In a fleeting moment of consciousness, King Gu Tong stole a glance at Jian Wushuang. The ends of his lips curled into an encouraging smile. This fledgling has done well indeed. To think that he bears the imperial bloodline as well. Think of something, National Master. We cannot lose. Emperor Leng's frantic cries resounded from afar once more. Think of something. The soothsayer turned dismal and sullen as he raked his mind for solutions in the midst of the savage duel against his foe. Suddenly his eyes twinkled and he sent a silent message via telepathy to Emperor Leng. Quick! Activate the formation. The formation? Now! The Emperor stammered with doubt. But I am not ready. We can afford to wait no more. You will still be able to regain some advantage even if you are not ready. Otherwise, all is lost and all our efforts will be for naught. The soothsayer urged and screamed. No more doubts. Quick! Emperor Leng could only frown with a throbbing anxiety. A strong and stout woman who had endured countless trials and tribulations to seize power as an empress of a strong empire, she was hardly an indecisive and tentative person. With a few calculations, she swiftly came to a decision. Very well, I will activate the formation now. Emperor Leng responded to him telepathically. It should be so. The soothsayer replied approvingly with a wicked grin. At the other side of the battlefield, Emperor Leng was still defending herself against the unforgiving blows of Emperor Shao. She leaped backward and fled, stopping halfway in mid-air after flying for some time. Are you ready, Xia Yong? Emperor Leng shot a glance at the pale and crippled Xia Yong. From behind the backs of his kinsmen protecting him, Xia Yong heard the call of the Empress. His lips twitched with anticipation. Is it time finally? Xia Yong's expression turned dark and cruel, his eyes sparkled with apprehension. I may be weakened and the preparations are not yet complete, but I do not think we can wait any longer. We must strike now. Begin the sequence. Xia Yong responded her call and his body began to convulse violently. High above in the air, Emperor Leng's face became intense as many Dao masters around her had their sights set upon her. With a flick of her wrist, a golden token appeared in her hand. A strange and unusual aura permeated from the token. Emperor Leng steeled herself with renewed resolve, with her teeth gritted, she crushed the token in her hand. Chapter 953, The 36 Diabolic Pillars. Chapter 953, the 36 diabolic pillars. As soon as the jade token crumbled into pieces, a huge wave of energy rippled from within it, rolling furiously into all directions. The Tao Master warriors of Emperor Zhao's forces could not help but feel a foreboding dread. But Emperor Leng and Xia Yong instead wore an expression of maniacal delirium. Far away from them, the soothsayer could hardly suppress a malicious smile. His eyes burned with bloodthirsty craving. The 30-60 prefectures of the Tang Empire of the East. This was the Anyong Prefecture, one of the 36 prefectures. Situated hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the site of the battle at the imperial city, the Anyong Prefecture was peaceful and silent. Even the governor of the prefecture, despite having received word of the battle waging in the imperial city, had no intentions of dipping his finger into the murky waters by aligning himself with Emperor Leng or Emperor Shao. Yet despite the tranquil peace, suddenly, buzz! The grounds of the Anyong Prefecture began to shake violently. What is happening? What is going on? There has been word of a huge battle taking place in the imperial city. Could it be that the scourge of war has reached us? Terrified cries and shouts resounded across the cities in the Anyong Prefecture. Panic and chaos were everywhere, yet none knew what was happening. Even the governor of the prefecture himself was bewildered and shocked. But the strongest tremor took place in a huge castle in the middle of the Anyong Prefecture. Cracks began to form on the ground at the centermost part of the castle as if something was burrowing from the ground, fighting to see the light of day. It did not take long for the unknown item to show itself, protruding from the broken earth. It was a stone column, fully black in color with numerous mystic engravings and runic scripts adorning its structure. The black obsidian monolith radiated an ancient and yet evil aura. It was so huge that it almost took up 1/10 of the entire breadth of the castle grounds. After rising sharply from the ground, it kept rising at an incredible speed, and finally stopped till it rose to tens of thousands of feet high. Towering at tens of thousands of feet high, the huge, elaborately decorated obelisk stood silently at the center of the castle grounds. Its sudden emergence from underground attracted many bystanders and warriors who were defending the castle. In the midst of their confusion, it sparkled dangerously. The flash of gray light began to enlarge and stretch further and further that the eerie luminescence engulfed the entire castle. But its hunger was hardly satiated as the evil brightness began to lengthen its reach farther and farther. Before long, the entire Anyong Prefecture was bathed in the creepy and uncanny illumination. But the strange and eerie gray light did not stop, its penchant for more fueling its growth to expand larger and larger. But it was not only in Anyong Prefecture. Monolithic obsidian black obelisks began to sprout from the center of each and every prefecture of the 36 prefectures, all of which were similarly embellished with mystical engravings and runic scripts. 36 obelisks for all 30-60 prefectures of the Tang Empire of the East. Each of the gargantuan stone columns released the same gray-colored illumination that expanded wider and wider with a voracious zeal. In the blink of an eye, the gray lights from each prefecture overlapped and swallowed the lands of the Tang Empire of the East whole. The multitudes of warriors in the 36 prefectures were shocked and startled as the gigantesque magical formation comprising of the huge blanketing lights came into shape. Bewildered and astonished, the warriors within the vicinity did not know the purpose of the magical formation. But their answers were swiftly answered as they found that the magical formation was, in fact, an incredibly huge barrier that cut off the entire Tang Empire of the East from the outside world. Those within the barrier could not leave the confines of the barrier, much less communicating with anyone outside. What is happening? Pandemonium swept the entire empire as hundreds of millions of martial practitioners and warriors fell into panic and disarray. As anticipated, the colossal barrier encompassing the empire had also included what was left of the imperial city. The sudden emergence of the gray, glimmering shrouds above their heads left many Tao masters of both sides of the battle stopped in their tracks to look above at the sky, perplexed and puzzled. But both Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun immediately grew alarmed and shocked. "You evil bitch! How dare you! Emperor Shao roared, his eyes blazing angrily. Ha 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 ha. I have passed the point of no return. I will accept no defeat or failure. Emperor Leng hissed insidiously. Blasted woman. Emperor Shao exclaimed as he felt himself shuddering violently. Emperor Leng merely chuckled. Xia Yong had come over to her, standing right by her side. They stood together and looked into the sky, their eyes flickering with a deranged gleam. Long have I labored to have the 36 diabolic pillars furnished and readied. Finally, it is time for me to reap the harvest. Emperor Leng said with a deep and distant look in her eyes that hemmed with no less frenzy. Long have we waited. At long last. Xia Yong cried passionately. But around them across the battlefield, the horde of warriors and soldiers could not understand what was happening. Until they saw a surging wave of golden aura rushing from the distant sky. That is luck. There is no mistaking it. That is luck. The luck and fortune of the empire which has accumulated for centuries. Flashes of alarmed horror splayed across the faces of each and every warrior across the entire battleground. Gu Qing's voice rang with anxiety suddenly in Jian Wushuang's mind. Could that be luck? Luck? What is luck? Jian Wushuang asked, confused and surprised. Luck is an ethereal substance that exists in this world. Gu Qing explained hastily, each and every one of us bears a certain amount of luck. It is the volume of the amount that varies between each person. Those blessed with great luck will find themselves fortunate and bountiful in all their endeavors. More often than not, the opportunities they encounter will most likely be rewarding than detrimental, unlike those that have lesser luck. Your success in employing methods of inverse cultivation and the awakening of the ancient godly bloodline, as well as the abundance of martial skills and treasures that have been showered upon you, are all due to your extraordinary luck. To a warrior, luck has an extremely powerful influence. Yet, in a much larger proportion, luck itself holds the key to the rise and fall of a nation or an empire. The luck and fortune of this empire, accumulated and amassed for all the centuries it has endured, is way beyond your imagination. These people you are fighting against are vying for it. The luck of the Tang Empire. Was the betrothal arranged by Emperor Leng and the Xia clan, as well as the rift between her and Emperor Shao, part of this, a strife in pursuit of luck? But even with greater luck, she would at most endow herself with richer and more plentiful blessings. Is this even worth all the lives lost in battle? That is because you have yet to reach the level of Tao Master. Your current powers do not allow you the heightened acuteness to fully perceive the substance of luck. But when you are a Tao Master, especially who has reached the pinnacle of the Tao Master level, then you will know why. The Gu King remarked cryptically. Chapter 954, Life-Devouring Formation. Chapter 954, Life-Devouring Formation. To those peak Tao Masters, luck not only increases their chances of obtaining opportunities and treasures but their strength as well. Moreover, they can even force their way through a bottleneck if they accumulate enough luck, Gu King said. These people ought to have made plenty of preparation before, using a special formation to gather all the luck of the Tang Kingdom of the East for their own use. The luck will bring them great advantages while the Tang Kingdom will meet its demise. I understand now. Jian Wushuang nodded, awe flitting across his face. No wonder Lord of Circus Island would accuse Emperor Leng of going against the peace of the world. No wonder Emperor Yun would choose to station here in Emperor Zhao's camp. It turned out that Emperor Leng had set her sights on the Tang Kingdom of the East. After all, a country who had lost all its luck would be a country waiting for its demise. Hovering in the void above, Emperor Shao and the others all appeared pale. Emperor of Tang had founded the Tang Kingdom of the East with a certain great skill, and in the many years after, they had always sought ways to expand and strengthen the kingdom. Yet, Emperor Leng had tried to rob the Tang Kingdom of its luck for her own benefit. Back then, Emperor Shao had broken off any friendship with Emperor Leng precisely because he had discovered the latter's treachery. Their relationship worsened to the point that a war broke out between them. You lowly bastard, how can you answer to your master after your actions today? Emperor Shao said with a snort. Humph. It's just a little bit of luck. Once I make a breakthrough, I'll find a way to reinvigorate the Tang Kingdom or just directly establish a better and stronger country, Emperor Leng replied coldly. The experts from Emperor Zhao's camp immediately flew into a rage after hearing his words. Even so, Emperor Leng could no longer worry about trivialities like these. She stared at the majestic luck that was piling up with a pair of crazed eyes. Out of nowhere. Emperor Leng frowned. That's, Xia Yong's expression abruptly shifted. They detected a hint of a different sort of force within the flow of the majestic luck. Not only was this development beyond their expectations, but they also noticed how special this force was. No. This isn't right. Gu Qing's alarmed voice suddenly resounded. What's wrong? Jian Wushuang immediately asked. It's not just the luck of the Tang Kingdom. There's also a different kind of force. Since I can't see the force, I believe it's the natural power of all things in the universe. Moreover, there's a lot of it, too many of it. Gu Qing's voice carried a hint of shock. Natural power? Jian Wushuang was equally as stunned. He appeared familiar with this so-called natural power. Back when he just obtained the heavenly creation skill in the ancient world, he earned not only a technique but a secret skill as well. It was the soul-devouring secret skill. To him back then, the soul-devouring secret skill was a skill that defied the natural order. It was used to absorb the natural power of all things in the universe. He had depended on this skill to survive many perilous situations in the ancient world. Unfortunately, the skill lost a lot of its use to him after he arrived in the eternal world. Up in the void, Emperor Leng and Xia Yong had already noticed that something was off. The former immediately cried, National Master, what's happening? What's happening? Ha! You're only asking me now what's happening when the situation has come to this. Though there was a fire burning in the old soothsayer's eyes, he was wearing an evil smile. Emperor Leng, did you really think that the formation I prepared for you is one that gathers luck? Kiki. I'll tell you honestly that the formation I prepared is one unique to my blood-killing sect, the life-devouring formation. Life-devouring formation. Shock swept the many Dao masters on the battlefield. Even if most of them had no idea what the formation was capable of, they could tell just from the name alone that it would not be anything good. I understand. I understand it all. Gu Qing's voice reverberated in Jian Wushuang's heart. I did wonder why he would have the blood-killing plate armor. So he's a member of the blood-killing sect. Blood-killing sect. Jian Wushuang was confused. It's a nefarious sect that is a near-universal enemy. Each of its members is undoubtedly a great demon. They know many evil formations and the soul-devouring formation is one of them, Gu Qing explained. The formation could forcefully refine all the natural power within its scope. It targets not only the natural power of the earth, it encompasses flora, fauna, and even humans. Everything that has vitality will be forcefully refined. If this formation has really enveloped the entire Tang Kingdom, then this is truly the end. The Tang Kingdom is over. There is not even the smallest room for struggle. Not only will the country be reduced into a dead land, but every cultivator within the scope of the formation will also die after being wrung dry. Jian Wushuang was startled. What are you saying? The entire Tang Kingdom will be reduced into a dead land? Everyone would be wrung dry. Don't doubt my words. The formation of the blood-killing sect is this evil. It doesn't take much for them to refine the energy of a soul kingdom, Gu Qing said. Jian Wushuang's face darkened significantly after hearing his words. Emperor Leng's face was incredibly warped. National Master, you lied to me? Kiki. I didn't lie to you. The formation can indeed gather all the luck of the Tang Kingdom, but that's not all that it will gather, the old soothsayer said with a manic laugh. Don't forget that there's a restriction that I left in your body. Aren't you worried that I'll trigger the restriction and kill you? Emperor Leng asked coldly. Restriction? Oh, I would have forgotten about it if you didn't remind me. I was heavily injured when I first met you. My strength was at its lowest, so bad that my blood-killing plate armor was in a fairly battered state. Back then, I was so weak that I could only run with my tails between my legs in a confrontation with an ordinary Dao master. Naturally, I needed an aide to help me find some natural treasures as well as 99,999 newborns for my recovery. That was why I would especially look for you, the old soothsayer said, looking at Emperor Leng with a cold glint in his eyes. Emperor Leng was stupefied. 99,999 newborns? The many experts present looked at Emperor Leng in shocked anger. There was indeed a period of time many years ago where many newborns were kidnapped in the 36 prefectures of the Tang Kingdom of the East, which led to a great commotion. The Tang royal family had personally investigated the matter but ultimately found no clues. Later on, fewer and fewer cases of kidnapped newborns cropped up until it eventually disappeared. No one knew what became of the incident. It was only now that they discovered that Emperor Leng was behind the many cases of kidnapped babies. Chapter 955, Furor. Chapter 955, Furor. When I contacted you, the Tang of the East has just undergone a great change. Emperor Qi died and Emperor Yun disappeared without a trace, leaving only you and Emperor Shao. Internally, the Xia clan was suffering hardship. Externally, the three main countries were suppressing the kingdom. The kingdom was already in jeopardy, but coupled with the fact that you had been harboring wild ambitions all along, you didn't reject my offer, the old soothsayer said with a laugh. Of course, I needed to leave some of my weaknesses in your hands to gain your full trust. That was why I allowed you to plant restriction in me. In the beginning, your restriction impacted me severely when I was still weak. It was to the point that I didn't dare to go against your orders out of fear that you'd kill me in a moment of unhappiness. When Emperor Shao had a fallout with you after noticing you were stealing the luck of the Tang Kingdom, I obeyed your order to deal with him. You became the sole ruler of the Tang Kingdom after Emperor Shao was chased off. The subsequent affairs were exactly like what I have told you. You helped me gather a large number of treasures to aid my recovery and used your influence to rope the Xia clan in. Together with the Xia clan, you planted 36 diabolic pillars in the 36 prefectures of the kingdom. Once everything was ready and you two have prepared well enough, you triggered the formation. Ha! Everything went according to plan. The only thing is that I didn't expect we would trigger the formation in advance due to this recruitment assembly. However, it doesn't affect my plan much. Kiki, you can try activating the restriction you planted in me. See what will happen, the old soothsayer said, chortling coldly. Emperor Leng turned purple in the face. Without hesitation, she activated the restriction she had placed in the old soothsayer's body. Even though she had clearly activated the restriction, the old soothsayer remained standing in place and showed no signs of being affected. How is this possible? Emperor Leng was in deep disbelief. The hearts of the people around her sank to the pits of their stomachs when they saw this. Fool! This woman is really a fool. Gu King scolded on and on. She's a Dao master who hasn't even become a holy master, yet she dares to make a deal and cooperate with a member of the blood-killing sect? She even personally helped him lay down the soul-devouring formation. No wonder her daughter would be born a great sinner. Foolish. She's foolish to the extreme. She's absolutely the most foolish woman I've ever seen. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes as he heard Gu Qing's rant, his gaze steely. Gu Qing had previously told him that Leng Rushuang was a primordial great sinner, but it was only now that he understood what exactly a great sinner was. Emperor Leng had evidently gone behind Emperor Zhao's back to lay down the soul-devouring formation and kidnap the many newborns for that national master before giving birth to or while still pregnant with Leng Rushuang. Leng Rushuang had only her mother to blame for being born a great sinner. Ironically, her mother was no more than a manipulated chess piece that reaped no benefit in the end. Bastard! You bastard! Dao Yuanzi, I'm going to kill you. Emperor Leng emitted a furious roar, a sound that shook the world. Her trembling body emanated waves of boundless killing intent. Kill me? Just based on your power alone? The old soothsayer glanced at Emperor Leng in disdain. Dao Yuanzi that Emperor Leng had referred to was his real name. Humph. The soul-devouring formation has been activated and I'm its master. Who's qualified to kill me? Dao Yuanzi snorted. Vitality chi gushed madly toward him and poured into him at a maddening speed. The dense vitality chi formed a large, indestructible defensive cover over him in a flash. Underneath the cover, Dao Yuanzi let out a loud, wicked laugh. He then began to frantically absorb the vitality chi. Following the incessant inflow of the vitality chi into Dao Yuanzi's body, his already terrifying aura began to expand at an alarming speed. Simultaneously, the Tang of the East began to rapidly wither. Many of the flora and fauna of the kingdom also met their demise. Whether it was the many Dao masters on the battlefield or the countless martial artists who had retreated near the imperial palace, all of them could feel the vitality chi pouring out of them. Even though the outflow could not be considered as fast, it was not slow either. If they allowed their vitality chi to continue flow out of them at this speed, it would take no more than 2 days for them to be wrung dry. The Dao masters would not be able to last any longer either. This scene gave rise to shock and fury in everyone present. The spectating experts had sat firmly on the fence while watching the battle between both armies. However, Dao Yuanzi's actions now directly threatened their survival. Naturally, they would be infuriated. Dao Yuanzi. Suddenly, someone snorted. The one who spoke was a master who originated from the Void Temple, as was Xueling Tian. What do you think you're doing? Hurry and stop your actions. If my temple master finds out, he'd definitely kill you. The gray-haired old man's voice was icy cold. Your temple master? Kiki, you must be referring to that master of Void Temple. Dao Yuanzi was still wearing a carefree smile. The master of Void Temple is strong, but he's likely no match for me. Don't you forget that you're all standing inside the soul-devouring formation. There's no way you can get your message out. How can the master of Void Temple know what's going on here? Moreover, even if he knows and really makes it here, what can he do? This formation is indestructible. Never mind a mere master of Void Temple, there's nothing that can be done to this formation even if there are 2 palace masters here. Once I'm done refining all the natural power of the Tang Kingdom and forging the blood cessation demon body, who in this realm can stop me? Dao Yuanzi laughed maniacally, appearing not to regard the master of Void Temple as a worthy opponent. Damn it! The gray-haired old man was terribly angered, but there was nothing that he could do about his situation. Is this the soul-devouring formation of the blood-killing sect? The steely-eyed Gu Tong spoke in an honest and ancient sort of voice. The quadrangular star between his brows emanated a dazzling ray of light. Chapter 956, 10% Chance of Success. Chapter 956, 10% Chance of Success. I've long heard of how wicked and cruel the members of the blood-killing sect can be, but today I finally see it with my own eyes. I wonder if my current strength is enough to completely dismantle the life-devouring formation. Power burst forth from within Gu Tong's pupils. The ancient god power began to frantically condense in his thick arm, giving rise to a frightening might. Even if the power had yet to break out entirely, it was enough to draw attention to him. Everyone looked at him in shock. Gu King Tong. Dao Yuanzi, who stood under the defensive cover, also looked over at him, a cold glint in his eyes. Gu Tong was the only one out of everyone here that he was truly concerned about, for the former was a 7-star imperial god at his peak. He was an existence that Dao Yuanzi must look up to. Even if Gu Tong had yet to recover 90% of his strength, he was not one to be underestimated. Gu Tong had already made his move. Ancient God's secret skill, one-finger extermination. He made a pointing motion with his dark golden arm, the terrifying ancient god power entirely condensed on the index finger on his right hand. His index finger contained the ultimate power that Gu King Tong could currently summon. It was also the strongest secret skill that Gu King Tong could currently unleash. The world would instantly perish once he pointed with his index finger. His terrifying power soon enveloped the defensive cover that shielded Dao Yuanzi. Come on. Come at me. Dao Yuanzi also wore a crazed smile on his face but showed not even the slightest hint of fear. Bang! The entire sky collapsed and the vast empty space in its place filled itself with the battlefield. Gu Tong's might was devastating. Even so, Dao Yuanzi remained still in the center of this might. The defensive cover that enveloped him remained intact. It's still intact. Gu Tong frowned with a dark golden lightning flashing in his pupils. Ha! It's useless. Dao Yuanzi's manic laughter echoed all around. Gu King Tong, this life-devouring formation certainly won't pose much of a problem had you been at your peak. However, you don't even have 10% of your strength back then and you might not even be able to win the Master of Void Temple. You wish to shatter my defensive cover with your current power? What a joke. Gu Tong looked coldly at him before shaking his head secretly. I can't do anything about this formation. Despite trying his best, he was still helpless against Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover. Naturally, there was nothing he could do about the formation as well. Everyone around him paled after seeing this scene. If even the strongest of them all, Gu Tong, could not do anything about Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover and formation, what could they even do? Are we going to just die within this defensive cover? It was uncertain who was the first to speak, but in the next moment, a commotion swept the crowd. The many martial artists present looked frightened. To them, death was not a terrifying outcome. However, it would be a total nightmare if they were to be refined while still alive and forced to watch helplessly as their life energy was drained out of them. You bitch. This is all your fault. Emperor Zhao's eyes flashed dangerously as he glared fixedly at Emperor Leng. While Emperor Leng felt intense anger and hatred, she was mostly at a loss. She felt helpless. Surely, no one would not be able to do anything about this if even the strongest of them all, Gu Tong, was helpless. They could only watch as Dao Yuanzi drained their life energy out of them. We're just waiting to die. The same thought surfaced on everyone's minds. The only thing that they could do now was to wait for death to arrive. They could only wait for the life-devouring formation to refine their life energy while they were still alive and for Dao Yuanzi to use the energy to forge his so-called blood cessation demon body. Most of them had completely given up hope. Gu King, is it true that I can dismantle the life-devouring formation as long as I shatter Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover? Jian Wushuang was holding Leng Rushuang in his embrace, but in his head, he was having a conversation with Gu King's consciousness. What are you planning to do? Gu King asked. I remember you once said that I can forcefully swallow the drop of blood essence in the event of certain death and try to fight for a chance of survival from there. Jian Wushuang said calmly. Oh. Jian Wushuang's expression shifted. If you do as I say, I can guarantee that you can take your little girlfriend and storm out of this formation alive, Gu King said. Just us both. What about the rest? Jian Wushuang asked. You still have the mood to think about others under such circumstances. You're better off worrying about yourself, Gu King scolded. How good are my chances if I gain strength from absorbing the blood essence and shatter Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover? Jian Wushuang once again asked. Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover can't be underestimated for it's carved out of the life-devouring formation. Even Gu King Tong was unable to cause any damage to it after using all of his strength. That's how strong it is. If you gain a short-term explosive growth in strength after absorbing the blood essence, you might be stronger than Gu King Tong. But you stand at most a 10% chance of shattering Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover. Gu King said solemnly. 10%? Jian Wushuang muttered. However, he appeared to have made up his mind. That's enough. Gu King was stunned. What are you saying, Jian Wushuang? If you tell me there's not even the slightest chance of success, maybe I would listen to you and escape with Leng Rushuang. But my senior brother, Emperor Shao and Di Jing, who I'm indebted to, and my 2 brothers for life are all trapped in this defensive cover. There are also still countless innocent people still here. For them. Never mind a 10% chance, even a 1% chance is enough for me to go all out and fight for our survival. Jian Wushuang's voice was icy cold and carried an unprecedented sense of determination. Relationships had always mattered to him the most. Be it brotherhood, or those he was indebted to. He also cared for those who once watched over him or even saved his life back then. He had burned these memories deep into his mind. Now that he knew he still had a shred of chance, he could still give it his all and try to fight for everyone's survival. He did not care if he would have to pay a steep price for his attempt or that there was a mere 10% chance of success. He would make good use of the chance anyway. He could not bring himself to ignore his 2 brothers, his senior brother, Emperor Shao, and the others and escape with Leng Rushuang. Have you already made up your mind? Gu King asked solemnly. Considering the current situation, he did not try to persuade Jian Wushuang. He respected Jian Wushuang's choice. Gu King, should I fail, please find a way to leave this place with Leng Rushuang. Chapter 957, Earth-Shattering Roar. Chapter 957, Earth-Shattering Roar. Gu King, should I fail, please find a way to leave this place with Leng Rushuang. When Jian Wushuang's placid voice rang in Gu King's mind, he could sense Jian Wushuang's buried determination. I'll try my best. Gu King nodded solemnly. Jian Wushuang smiled but his gaze was resting on Leng Rushuang who was in his embrace. He lowered his head and planted a gentle kiss on her lips. Then, he placed her on Gu King's back. Then he closed his eyes. The blood essence that originated from 8-star imperial god, King Luo Zhen, was enveloped in his inexhaustible force of blood vessels. There was only 70% of it left. He took in a deep breath and promptly allowed the force of blood vessels to wash over the drop of blood essence. He did not hesitate and engulfed the blood essence in one go. He forcefully absorbed the 70% left of the blood essence. Kaboom! An unprecedented strong ancient god power exploded within Jian Wushuang. This ancient god power gushed out of his body and sent shockwaves throughout the world. The helpless souls who had lost all hope turned to look at him in alarm. They were deeply startled when they noticed the terrifying power coming from Jian Wushuang. Unprecedented aghast expressions appeared on their faces. They could tell that the power bursting out of Jian Wushuang was far stronger than what came out of King Gu Tong. Jian Wushuang. Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and the rest stared at Jian Wushuang. They once again gained a renewed sense of hope after witnessing Jian Wushuang's enormous power. Even if that hope was so pathetically minuscule, it was enough to get their hearts thumping wildly. What they were seeing was a youngster in the Eternal Realm, but he was someone who had created countless miracles on this battlefield. He had already displayed the shockingly powerful magic weapon pavilion that contained 103,800 Emperor weapons during the battle in the recruitment assembly. Then, with his Eternal Realm cultivation, he fought Xia Meng, the genius from the Eternal World who was already a Dao Master. He used his Thunderbolt skill to deliver Xia Meng such a crushing defeat that he nearly killed the latter. When the war subsequently broke out, he alone confronted 3 Dao Masters and used one move to kill one of them. Then, the immortal army of the Xia clan was dispatched and immediately turned the tides of the battlefield to their side. Emperor Zhao's army was forced to retreat little by little. It was at that moment that Jian Wushuang once again appeared to help Emperor Shao to capture that enormous worm beast. Jian Wushuang had unleashed a terrifying consciousness attack and sound wave attack. Once the sound wave died, the immortal army of the Xia clan all perished and the situation soon favored Emperor Zhao's side again. Jian Wushuang had turned the situation on its end with a single, smooth move. Just earlier, Xia Yong, the Dao master as well as the strongest factor that the Xia clan had relied on for so many years, had joined the battle. Ultimately, it was still Jian Wushuang, a mere eternal realm dweller, who used some kind of trick to produce an unbelievably mighty power. He unleashed 3 pointers in succession, each one stronger than the one before. Xia Yong suffered such a crushing defeat that he had to pay a steep price to use a life-saving secret skill just to keep himself alive. Everything that had happened could be dubbed a series of miracles, yet they all happened to him alone. Jian Wushuang was now once again making a shocking move in a time where others were despairing about the life-devouring formation and resigning themselves to their deaths. Would he be able to create yet another unbelievable miracle? Over in the camp of the Xia clan, there was a gathering of surviving experts who were staring at Jian Wushuang. What kind of a trouble can that lowly beast create at this stage? Could he really kill that Dao Yuanzi? I doubt it. Xia Tao said coldly. I really hope that he'd succeed. Xia Yong stood at the rear of the camp as he stared coolly at Jian Wushuang. If he really manages to kill Dao Yuanzi, then he'd be saving us all. Our grudge, on the other hand. Humph. I bet he has to pay quite a steep price for all those moves he used. Even if he really kills Dao Yuanzi, I'm sure he'll lose his life as well. That saves us the trouble of taking revenge on him. Countless gazes that harbored anticipation and all sorts of complicated emotions were focused on Jian Wushuang. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang was experiencing overwhelmingly great changes in his body. After forcefully absorbing all of the remaining blood essence from King Luo Zhen, he felt the majestic ancient god power coursing violently through his body. The unprecedented impact on his body made him clench his teeth as he endured the intense pain within. It took him a great effort to control the ancient god power. Others would only be able to detect that his strength had exploded several times over. The quadrangular star imprinted in his mid-brows once again transformed. When he tried to engulf 30% of the blood essence in the past, he had merely reached the peak of 4-star level. However, there was now another star that had condensed in his mid-brows. Then yet another one appeared. The changes in Jian Wushuang showed no sign of stopping, and the remaining ancient god power frantically created a final star, making it the 7th star. However, the 7th star failed to be fully condensed and left only an illusory shadow on his skin. 6 stars. 6-star Imperial Ancient God. He was even so close to becoming a 7-star Imperial Ancient God. This was the kind of short-term strength that Jian Wushuang gained after forcefully engulfing the drop of blood essence. He currently had his eyes closed as his body trembled ever so slightly because of the intense pain that he felt. What's wrong with him? There were countless people who had their gazes firmly planted on Jian Wushuang. Even Dao Yuanzi, who stood safely under his defensive cover, could not help looking over at him. Finally, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes. The moment his eyelids flew open, a dark golden thunderlight that seemed capable of ravaging the earth flitted across his pupils. Roar! The piercing pain unlike any that he had ever felt before caused him to involuntarily let out a roar. It was a roar that was enough to shock every living creature in the world. The roar contained Jian Wushuang's determination to save his brothers, senior brother, and his savior Emperor Shao, even if it meant his death. It was simultaneously a roar that came out of the millions of innocent folks, directed at Dao Yuanzi. The roar startled the world and petrified heaven. It swept the 8 desolate lands and looked down upon all living in this world. Even more importantly, it signified an anger that Jian Wushuang had never experienced. This roar reached all the way up to the 9 heavens. It charged forward all while carrying the ancient god power that had leaked out of Jian Wushuang. Standing in front of Jian Wushuang was none other than the group of experts from the Xia clan. The sound wave imbued with ancient god power washed over them. No. The several great experts of the Xia clan, including the most powerful one of them all, Xia Yong, emitted blood-curdling screeches. Then, their bodies that were enveloped in the sound wave began to shatter like pieces of paper. When the roar subsided, the place where the Xia clan experts had stood was entirely empty. Ancestor Xia Yong, the current master of the clan, Xia Tao, as well as his heir, Xia Ming had all vanished within the roar. Chapter 958, Mountain and Rivers as the Palm, 9 Continents as the Seal. Chapter 958, Mountain and Rivers as the Palm, 9 Continents as the Seal. The earth-shattering roar lingered in the world, dissipating only after a long time had passed. The countless martial artists present felt a jolt down their spirits after hearing the roar. They were shaking from the bottom of their hearts. A mere roar from him had vanquished the top-down masters of the Xia clan, including the holy master Xia Yong. What kind of absurd strength was this? 6-star supreme ancient god. Even approaching the 7-star level. Even Gu Tong, who was a 7-star imperial ancient god, could not help feeling startled after seeing this scene. I understand now. This youngster was likely harboring a drop of blood essence that one of the ancient gods left behind, and that ancient god must be particularly strong, perhaps much stronger than me at my peak. What a pity. With such a drop of blood essence, he would have become a 6-star imperial ancient god in the future at the very least. But now that he has forcefully engulfed it, he has completely wasted it. Not only that, it's hard to say if he'll even survive it. Gu Tong quietly muttered to himself. Yet he also understood that Jian Wushuang had no other choice under the current circumstances. His only option was to forcefully engulf the ancient god power in the drop of blood essence and fight for a chance of survival. Unfortunately, only one person can refine the imparted drop of blood essence. Otherwise, such a powerful drop is enough to help me recover at least half of my strength. It would be so much easier to break out of this life-devouring formation then. But we can only depend on this youngster now, Gu Tong said to himself. All eyes were on Jian Wushuang. Earlier, they had harbored only a small hope and wished only for Jian Wushuang to create another miracle. Now that they detected his terrifying aura and powerful strength, their hope became more and more intense. Perhaps, just perhaps, Jian Wushuang might be able to create another miracle. Jian Wushuang continued to hover in the void after letting out the roar, feeling the explosive ancient god power within him easing a little. He abruptly raised his head and glared at Dao Yuanzi with a pair of eyes that harbored an intense killing intent. Then, in the next second, he made his move. Jian Wushuang stepped forward, his every step so heavy that it crushed the void. His every step easily spanned 1,000 miles. In just a few steps, he found himself in front of the defensive cover that enveloped Dao Yuanzi. He then threw a punch with his large hand, sending a flowing light flying at Dao Yuanzi. What did he send out? Since everyone was staring fixedly at Jian Wushuang, they had obviously noticed his actions. They wanted to find out what that flying light was. Soon, they saw what it was. The flying light was actually a peerlessly beautiful picture scroll. The picture scroll unveiled itself along with Jian Wushuang's tossing motion and vanished into the world shortly after. Just as everyone was puzzled over Jian Wushuang's actions. Buzz! The strange radiance suddenly flared. The endless blue dome of heaven above them began to undergo changes. What's wrong? What is this? Everyone stared wide-eyed at what was unfolding in the sky, stupefied. Even Dao Yuanzi, who was still under the defensive cover, looked up. They watched as the large and splendid world scroll thoroughly took over the vast sky. The world scroll that covered the entire blue dome of heaven slowly flowed like running water. Everyone stared fixedly at it, and for a moment, they saw a vast and inconceivable world in it. The mountains and rivers in the world made for a breathtaking vista. The most attention-grabbing detail was the 9 continents that stood in 9 different nooks of this immense world. Any of the continents was far larger than the Tang Kingdom of the East, even exceeding that of the entire ancient world. Inside those continents were countless cities and people. The people that lived there were like real living beings, their aura as strong as that of the martial artists of the ancient world. Everyone could not help immersing themselves in the world scroll. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang was already standing next to Dao Yuanzi. He lifted his right hand and his enhanced ancient god power flowed frantically into his palm. The terrifying power had completely condensed in the hollow of his palm. Jian Wushuang's eyes abruptly focused on Dao Yuanzi. Pale golden light flitted across his pupils. Mountain river map. Mountains and rivers as the palm, 9 continents as the seal. Jian Wushuang paused between each word, which contained a special kind of magical power. One of the 9 continents that were larger than the entire ancient world within the world scroll appeared to have come to life. It even felt as if the continent was slowly emerging out of the scroll as a real entity. Boom! The continent was emerging out of the scroll. It was something unreal, something that existed only in the scroll. Yet it had truly stepped out of the world scroll. The scroll emerged out of the scroll countless times smaller, but it was still large enough to cast a shadow over the imperial palace. The scroll's might was so terrifying that everyone could feel goosebumps. Oh God! What kind of skill is this? He created an entire continent. Or is this a world? It's actually real. Unbelievable. This skill is unbelievable. Voices layered with disbelief and shock reverberated in the air like explosions. Jian Wushuang's terrifying skill had exceeded everyone's imagination. Even experienced and knowledgeable ones like Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and the rest had never seen such an unbelievable skill. How did a continent emerge out of a scroll like it was real? Even Dao Yuanzi was startled when he saw the towering continent that had appeared above his head. This sort of skill had shocked even him. Right at this moment, Jian Wushuang was shrouded in a killing intent so intense that it made others tremble. Dao Yuanzi. The ear-splitting roar burst out of Jian Wushuang's mouth, once again causing a destructive storm in the air. You shouldn't come to this world. You shouldn't lay down this life-devouring formation at the cost of millions of innocent lives just to forge your so-called blood cessation demon body. For the sake of the Tang of the East and the millions of people here, you must die. The Qing province of the 9 provinces act as the seal that split open the heavens. Boom! The continent that originated from the scroll had completely descended on this world. Chapter 959, That's impossible. Chapter 959, That's impossible. An endless stretch of land is divided into 9 provinces. The mountains and rivers as my palms, and 9 provinces as seals, creating a world. Jian Wushuang activated the powerful mountain river map. He had received 3 treasures from Xian Yi, and this map was the 3rd and most precious one among the 3. The map depicted a vast stretch of land. It was divided into 9 provinces, each containing a magical seal. To master the art of using this magical map, one had to learn a secret skill called 9-province seal. Jian Wushuang had acquired this treasure shortly before the selection ceremony and spent 3 years studying this map and the secret skill before barely mastering the first move of the skill. At that time, however, he had been unable to put that move into use since he did not have enough powers to activate the map. After all, it would consume a huge amount of spiritual power to use a seal on the map. It would consume even more power than Jian Wushuang's 9th heaven sword formation and 3 fingers of the ancient god would. The reason he was able to use this move now was that he had absorbed all the remaining essence blood of King Luo Zhen, which had given him the top-notch 6-star ancient god power. The first move of 9-province seal used Qing province on the map as the seal. Its actual name was Sky-Splitting Seal. Split the heavens. Jian Wushuang shouted, and then a vast continent emerged out of the map. At this moment, both the heavens and the earth were roaring, and all living creatures could not help shuddering. Trillions of living creatures in the 36 prefectures within Tang of the East seemed to feel the emergence of the continent. They were thrilled and began screaming in anger. Jian Wushuang had never been so determined, and his killing intent had never been this strong. Also, he had never used such a mighty move before. He was now fighting for trillions of living creatures in Tang of the East, who were longing for life. They were filled with raging indignation and desperately wanted to kill Dao Yuanzi. They pinned their hope on this magical continent. In an instant, the continent of Qing province pressed down on the defensive cover created by Dao Yuanzi with enormous ferocity. Boom, the brutal force began to twist the space, and the surrounding space quickly shattered into pieces. As the force expanded on the battlefield, the bystanders were compelled to withdraw, leaving only Jian Wushuang and Dao Yuanzi on it. While the ancient god power was rapidly rushing to Jian Wushuang's palms to increase the powers of the Qing province seal, his eyes and palms became red, and his face was crazily twisted. Humph, even if you were a 6-star ancient god, you would never be able to destroy our blood-killing sex-life-devouring formation. It's complete now. You can never break it. Dao Yuanzi shouted loudly and assertively under his defensive cover. Life-devouring formation was the most evil formation of the blood-killing sect. Its powers were remarkable. It was indeed impossible for Jian Wushuang to demolish it with just the top-notch 6-star ancient god power. Haha, it's useless. No one can stop me from nourishing my blood-killing demon body with the vitality of living creatures in Tang of the East. No one can stop me. As Dao Yuanzi snarled wildly under his defensive cover, the light of the cover got increasingly bright and glaring. No one can stop you. Now, watch this. Jian Wushuang said, his voice sounded like thunder. It covered all the other sounds between earth and sky and was transmitted directly into the ears of Dao Yuanzi. In the meantime, the vast continent of Qing province pressed even harder on Dao Yuanzi's protective cover. The powers of this seal finally surged to their highest level. Crack. Although it was just a slight cracking sound, it still quickly caught the attention of the bystanders. The next moment, they burst into hysterics and could not help cheering. Upon hearing the cracking sound, Dao Yuanzi was frightened to death. That's impossible. That's impossible. Dao Yuanzi shouted loudly and desperately, disbelief evident in his eyes. He had never appeared so scared and panicked since he had begun his cultivation. He couldn't believe what had happened. How come a person who's barely able to wield the 6-star ancient god battle strength with the aid of an external force could crack my 36 diabolic pillars and my life-devouring formation? This is impossible. This is impossible, unless... Dao Yuanzi thought and then suddenly lifted up his head to look at the world map in the sky. This world map looks incredibly fascinating. Is there anything special about it? Its aura seems quite antique and sophisticated. Is it a... Dao Yuanzi wondered. The next moment, he could not help but voice his thought. A chaos divine treasure. This world map is a chaos divine treasure. How is this possible? Dao Yuanzi shouted as if he was going mad. In his eyes, the entire world now looked unbelievably crazy. That's impossible. That's impossible. No one in this realm can own a chaos divine treasure. He shouted furiously, his heart and his whole body shaking violently with fear. He was confident that Jian Wushuang would never be able to demolish his life-devouring formation with the 6-star ancient god battle strength. Nevertheless, he had never expected that the boy had a chaos divine treasure. This chaos divine treasure was even more powerful than his own blood-killing plate armor. As far as he knew, no one in this realm was able to own such a high-level treasure, which was rare in this universe. However, Jian Wushuang showed him such a treasure. Crack. Cracks began to appear in many parts of his defensive cover, which meant that it was already on the verge of collapse. No! Dao Yuanzi shouted in horror. Nevertheless, the defensive cover did not follow his instructions anymore. With a loud, crisp cracking sound, it shattered into pieces, leaving him unprotected. Go to hell! Jian Wushuang shouted loudly. The vast continent of Qing province pressed down on Dao Yuanzi with great ferocity, smashing all his bones to pieces. I'll never reconcile. Never reconcile. Dao Yuanzi shrieked frantically toward the sky. A moment later, he was pressed deep into the ground by the continent of Qing province. Thus this fight left a huge sinkhole on the battlefield, whose diameter was several thousand kilometers. When the continent of Qing province dispersed in the space, there were absolutely no signs of life at the bottom of the sinkhole. Jian Wushuang stood on the vast battlefield, alone. Everyone and everything between earth and sky were silent. Chapter 960, The End of the Battle. Chapter 960, The End of the Battle. The world map above in the void slowly rolled up and fell down. The 36 diabolic pillars, which were covered with mysterious lines and patterns, suddenly burst open and could no longer suppress the 36 prefectures of Tang of the East. The gray defensive cover above Tang of the East began to disperse. Countless living beings in Tang of the East noticed that the vitality of their lives ceased to drain away. They erupted into cheers. The life-devouring formation has been demolished. Everyone on the battlefield was thrilled too. At this moment, all of them fixed their gaze upon the youth in the center of the huge battlefield. Jian Wushuang stood there alone. He was just a young man with eternal realm. However, it was this youth that had achieved an incredible miracle once again. At this moment, Jian Wushuang also turned his head to look at the crowd, kindly and smilingly. I, Jian Wushuang, never let my relatives and friends down. I never let you down in the past, and I'll never let you down in the future. Jian Wushuang said plainly and somewhat relievedly. Upon hearing that, the crowd burst into a spontaneous cheer. Third brother, shouted Wang Yuan and Yang Zishuan. They were particularly excited. They had only been able to stand by and watch the fight during the battles, since they were far beyond their levels. They had been shocked and outraged when seeing Jian Wushuang fall into crisis. Now, when they saw him kill Dao Yuanzi and demolish life-devouring formation, they were so proud that they could not help but ran toward Jian Wushuang. Don't go there. Alchemy Master said and stopped them with his arm outstretched in front of them. Is there anything wrong? Asked Wang Yuan, confusedly. Alchemy Master did not reply, but he wore an exceptionally solemn expression on his face. Not only him, but also the other powerful and wise experts such as Gu Tong, Emperor Shao, and Emperor Yun all discovered that Jian Wushuang did not feel all right. They even believed that he was suffering. He has forced himself to absorb such powerful inheritance essence blood, Gu Tong sighed secretly. As an expert with eternal realm, he can never control such a formidable power. Jian Wushuang, Emperor Shao sighed, feeling uneasy. His face became pale. Not far away from Jian Wushuang, crouched a large centipede, Gu King. It also fixed its red eyes upon Jian Wushuang. As for Leng Rushuang, she still remained unconscious. Gu King had already sent her to Emperor Shao instead of carrying her on its back. Now that life-devouring formation was demolished, Gu King did not have to carry her around to keep her safe. Young man, I've advised you not to get involved in this mess. You chose to play the hero yourself. Now, you saved others, but your own life is in great danger now, murmured Gu King. Jian Wushuang quietly stood at the center of the battlefield, looking calm and collected on the outside, but actually he was resisting a strong impact inside. The ancient god power contained in the inheritance essence blood of King Luo Zhen was eroding his insides. This caused unbearable pains to him and made him feel as if his insides had been set on fire and his bones, smashed into pieces. I guess I have no choice now. Jian Wushuang thought with a bitter smile on his face. Boom! His huge body shook and exploded into a dense blood fog in front of everyone. Drops of blood began to fall toward the center of the battlefield, giving everyone present a shock. Third brother. Wang Yuan and Yang Zishuan were overwhelmed by the sadness. Junior brother. Xue Lingtian turned pale with fright. Right at this moment, excitement suddenly flickered within the eyes of Gu Qing, who had been staying around Jian Wushuang in the void all this while. It stared straight ahead and spotted a drop of dark golden blood in the blood fog. All the drops in the fog were red, except that one. Gu Qing acted immediately. It rustled into the blood fog instantly and opened its mouth to catch and swallow the drop of dark golden blood. In the meantime, its tentacles all stood up, ready to clear up the battlefield. It used its tentacles to pick up Jian Wushuang's interspatial ring and mountain river map as well as Dao Yuanzi's treasures. After that, it gave a long roar towards the sky and then tunneled into the ground. Boom! It swiftly entered the depths of the sinkhole and then the underground world, disappearing from everyone's view. This scene stunned everyone present. Upon seeing that, they reached the same conclusion. Jian Wushuang must be dead. He turned himself into a dense blood fog. There's no chance that he is still alive. His worm beast escaped with all his and Dao Yuanzi's treasures. All of a sudden, the world became quiet. You bitch, look what you've done. Emperor Shao was furious and stared at Emperor Leng, who was standing right in front of him. Sadness was evident on the beautiful face of Emperor Leng. Her eyes were vacant, and her attitude was cold regardless of how everyone else looked at her. Despite that, she could not help feeling painful inside. The next moment, when Emperor Shao came at her and suppressed her, she did not resist at all. Xian Yi, I've tried my best to fight this battle today. The agreement between you and me ends here. Goodbye. King Gutong sent a message to Xian Yi. After that, he swished his hand to open a wormhole in the void and left through it. At this point in time, this unprecedentedly fierce battle finally concluded. Dao Yuanzi was killed, and Jian Wushuang was believed to be dead. His worm beast was thought to have fled with all their treasures. It ended, someone murmured. What an incredible battle. It's finally over, someone exclaimed. It had too many twists and turns, someone added. Jian Wushuang is such a peerless genius, a once-in-a-generation talent. Unfortunately, he's dead, someone sighed. What a pity, someone echoed. The crowd burst into exclamations and sighs. Chapter 961, Regained Consciousness. Chapter 961, Regained Consciousness. The battle ended. It was an unprecedentedly fierce battle which had shaken the earth and heavens. The moment it concluded, the stories about it began spreading throughout the eternal world at an amazing rate. In only a few days, the entire eternal world heard about this shocking piece of news. Everyone was astonished. No one had ever thought that the mysterious national master of Tang of the East had been secretly scheming against the country. No one had expected the famous Emperor Leng and the Xia clan to be the national master's accomplices. Days after the battle, warriors in Tang of the East were still in shock. After all, they had nearly been annihilated by those people, and the entire Tang of the East had nearly been turned into an abandoned land. Both of the two belligerent parties had suffered heavy losses in this battle. Nearly two-thirds of the Dao masters engaged in this battle were killed, and the situation was even worse for those serving under Emperor Leng. Among her 24 bodyguards, only 6 of them survived. Emperor Leng herself was also suppressed by Emperor Shao. As for the Xia clan, it suffered a devastating blow. As the #1 overlord clan in Tang of the East, the Xia clan had displayed a formidable strength in the battle. It just had never expected that its most elite troop, the Immortal Army, would have been annihilated by Jian Wushuang. Many high-level experts of the clan were killed during the battle, including Ancestor Xia Yong and Master Xia Tao. It could be argued that nearly all the high-level experts of the Xia clan were killed in this battle. Without them, the clan could no longer maintain its position as the #1 overlord clan in Tang of the East. To make matters worse, they had to suffer oppression at the hands of Emperor Shao, as now he regained control of this country. The former #1 overlord clan of Tang of the East could hardly restore the power and influence in the future. In this sense, Emperor Leng and the Xia clan were totally defeated. They were destroyed and had absolutely no strength left for counterattack or even struggle. When trillions of living creatures in Tang of the East knew what Dao Yuanzi, Emperor Leng, and the Xia clan had done, they were filled with raging indignation. They would never forgive Emperor Leng or let her control their country even if she started all over again someday. When the entire eternal world was impressed and moved by this fierce battle, all the cultivators in this world remembered a name. Jian Wushuang. He was such a super genius and had created so many miracles on the battlefield. He was the cause of this battle. He was also the hero of this battle. He had completely turned the tables on his enemies during this battle by annihilating the Xia clan's immortal army. He had defeated Ancestor Xia Yong of the Xia clan with just 3 fingers. When Dao Yuanzi's evil plan had been exposed and everyone on his side had felt helpless, he had saved everyone and suppressed Dao Yuanzi with amazing powers. He was no doubt a hero with astounding capabilities. In the meantime, all the cultivators found it hard to believe that this dazzling hero and creator of miracles on the battlefield was just an expert with Eternal Realm. Therefore, they could only describe him as a genius, an exceptional genius, or even a monster. To their great disappointment, this genius died during the unprecedentedly fierce battle. Everyone present at the scene had witnessed his death. He turned himself into a dense blood fog, from which no one could manage to come back to life. No matter how much the warriors admired his abilities and strengths, they could only sigh wistfully every time they thought of him. Gradually, 10 years passed. During those years, Jian Wushuang gradually became just a name in a legend, which would be mentioned occasionally by the people in the world. No matter how amazing he had been, he could hardly avoid the fate of being gradually forgotten by them. No one expected Jian Wushuang, this legendary figure in the history of Tang of the East and the Eternal World, to be able to come back to life 10 years after he had turned himself into a blood fog. At this moment, a red worm beast with countless tentacles was crouching inside a cave mansion several thousand kilometers below the ground. A dark golden light spot was floating inside the void in front of its head. "Gu King, where are we?" Jian Wushuang's voice came from the light spot. He had just regained his consciousness. "That's not important. You just need to know that you're safe here. You can restore your body as soon as possible at this place," replied Gu King. "Restore my body?" Jian Wushuang said dryly. He had spent 10 years reviving his consciousness contained in the drop of ancient god essence blood, which was dark golden in color, and now he had to restore his body step by step based on this drop of blood, which was the only remaining part of his body. "It took me so many years to restore my consciousness. Compared to this process, body restoration is much more complicated. I don't know how long it will take to complete this job," added Jian Wushuang. "Well, it was you who did this to yourself, wasn't it?" Gu King teased. "If you had followed my advice and left with your little girlfriend, none of this would have happened. Your body would be alright, so would the 70% of essence blood of King Luozhen." Jian Wushuang was struck speechless, but deep inside his heart, he did not feel regret for his choice at all. Fortunately, you always stick to an inverse cultivation method, and when your body turned into a blood fog, you happened to be at the level where you were equipped with everlasting realm. This realm enabled you to come back to life. Without it, you were dead long ago, added Gu King, somewhat grumpily. Jian Wushuang chuckled bitterly while feeling that he had to agree with Gu King. Forcing himself to absorb all the remaining essence blood of King Luo Zhen could be considered as a suicide behavior. Nevertheless, with the help of Everlasting Realm, he did not need to worry about his own life. As long as he still remained at this level of cultivation, he would never succeed in killing himself no matter how hard he tried. As long as there was a drop of his blood left in this world, he could survive. Not to mention that Gu King had quickly spotted and protected the drop of blood when his body had exploded into a blood fog. "Oh, yeah, what happened after that battle?" asked Jian Wushuang. "What else could happen? You killed Dao Yuanzi and demolished his life-devouring formation. As such, you guys won the battle, but you suffered heavy losses as well," said Gu King. "My side suffered heavy losses. This battle must have greatly sapped the strength of Tang of the East." Jian Wushuang could not help but sigh in his heart, although this result met his expectations. "I'll restore my body and regain my powers as quickly as I can. I have to return to Tang of the East as early as possible," said Jian Wushuang. Chapter 962, The Eternal Chaotic World. Chapter 962, The Eternal Chaotic World. "Are you saying that you want to quickly restore your body? You'd better give up that idea," said Gu King. "Look at yourself, you can't restore your body within a short period of time. That said, I have to admit that you're lucky. After you killed that Dao Yuanzi, I managed to get his interspatial ring. This guy from the blood-killing sect stored many treasures in the ring, and some of them can help you restore your body and strength. However, even with the help of these treasures, it'll still take you at least 1,000 years to restore your body." "1,000 years?" Jian Wushuang exclaimed in astonishment while groaning inwardly. "Are you kidding? It has been at most 500 years since I was born. Now I need to spend 1,000 years restoring my body and strength. And this is the best result that can be achieved using the treasures left by Dao Yuanzi. It's only 1,000 years. It's really quick. It'll pass in a blink of an eye," said Gu King. Jian Wushuang felt helpless. After a moment, he asked, "Gu King, do you know where did that Dao Yuanzi come from? And what was the blood-killing sect? Those guys didn't belong to this place, right?" He was curious about them. "You're right. Dao Yuanzi did come from another place." Gu King nodded slightly. "Jian Wushuang, as you know, there are always skies beyond our skies and people better and stronger than us. Our realm is big enough for us, but that doesn't mean that it's the only realm in the world." "I know this," Jian Wushuang admitted. He had come to understand this fact back in the Star Island when he had first known the existence of Star Bloodline. Back then, he had noticed that the founder of the Star Bloodline seemed to possess powers that did not belong to this realm. Apart from the founder of the Star Bloodline, King Luo Zhen, a 8-star imperial god, also seemed to have such powers. The world we're in is vast and far beyond your imagination. And it's known by the name Eternal Chaotic World. Gu King explained. Eternal Chaotic World consists of many realms, which were also known as Eternal Worlds, thus our Eternal World is only part of the Eternal Chaotic World. Every Eternal World has its own name. As far as I know, your Eternal World is known by the name Green Fire World." "Green Fire World?" Jian Wushuang wondered in amazement, he had never heard of this name before. In the past, warriors in the Green Fire World usually referred to this world as the Eternal World. Nevertheless, the Green Fire World is actually just one of the many Eternal Worlds. Does this principle also apply to the Ancient World? After all, the Ancient World also consists of many equal realms, thought Jian Wushuang. There are countless experts in this vast Eternal Chaotic World, and some of them possess powers that are way beyond our imagination. For example, a Dao Master could be considered as the top dog in his or her Eternal World, but compared to the top-notch experts of the Eternal Chaotic World, a Dao Master is nothing. All the first-rate experts of the Eternal Chaotic World possess mighty powers, such as the founder of the Star Bloodline and my former master, King Luo Zhen. The former could create a vast stellar fog sea with just a movement of his hand, and the latter was a 8-star imperial god. As for the 7-star imperial god King Gu Tong that you saw in the previous battle, he can never compete with King Luo Zhen in power, Gu King added. Both Gu Tong and King Luo Zhen are imperial gods, and the former is just one level below the latter. Why is there such a huge difference between them? Jian Wushuang asked. One level makes a lot of difference, Gu King said sneeringly. You're still too weak to understand that now. When your levels get significantly improved, you'll be able to explore the other realms. At that time, you'll understand. There is only 1 star's difference between the 7-star imperial god and the 8-star imperial god, but that 1 star makes a huge difference. Upon hearing that, Jian Wushuang could not help but feel astonished. Compared to the first-rate experts of the eternal chaotic world, Dao Yuanzi was just a nobody. However, the blood-killing sect he belonged to is widely known. It's the evilest sect in the world. Even the founder of the Star Bloodline and King Luo Zhen could not afford to mess with them, said Gu King. Wow. I see. Jian Wushuang nodded. You're still weak and don't need this kind of knowledge at this moment. I will tell you all the things that you should know when you become a Dao Master and are able to freely explore the eternal chaotic world. At present, the most important thing is to restore your body and become a Dao Master, said Gu King. Yes, you're right. Jian Wushuang agreed. Take your time, restore your body first, said Gu King. You've forced yourself to absorb the essence blood left by King Luo Zhen and wasted 90% of its power. But, you managed to refine a small volume of it and integrate it into your body. When you recover, your strength should be improved. Oh. Jian Wushuang was surprised. During the previous battle, he had compelled himself to absorb the essence blood and wasted a good part of it. However, a small volume of it was still left in the drop of blood that he had left in this world. This essence blood would probably do him some good in the future. In addition, among the many treasures left by Dao Yuanzi, some of them are pretty useful to you. You can try them out after you've recovered, said Gu King. Treasures left by Dao Yuanzi. Jian Wushuang felt thrilled. As an expert of the eternal chaotic world and a disciple of the blood-killing sect, Dao Yuanzi must have many priceless treasures. His blood-killing plate armor is really amazing. During the previous battle, when King Gu Tong first arrived at the battlefield, he could severely injure Dao Yuanzi with just a punch. His battle strength is clearly much stronger than that of Dao Yuanzi. However, the next moment when Dao Yuanzi put on his blood-killing plate armor, his strength increased so much that he managed to resist King Gu Tong in the end. Obviously, it was his blood-killing plate armor that had drastically improved his powers, thought Jian Wushuang. Look at you. What a naive boy. The treasures left by Dao Yuanzi are good, and some of them are useful to you. However, all his treasures combined cannot compete with your mountain river map, said Gu King. Mountain river map? Jian Wushuang was stunned and then thought of this treasure. It was this mountain river map that had enabled him to destroy his enemies during the previous battle. Back on that battlefield, he had managed to activate the map and use a 9-province seal skill to crush Dao Yuanzi and his life-devouring formation during the last minutes of the battle. Chapter 963, Send a Message to Say Hi. Chapter 963, Send a Message to Say Hi. Jian Wushuang knew that swallowing the essence blood and gaining the battle strength of an imperial god were not the only reasons he destroyed the life-threatening formation and killed Dao Yuanzi. He had assistance from the mountain river map as well. At that time, Dao Yuanzi had looked furious, and it was also because of the mountain river map. According to Dao Yuanzi, the mountain river map was a chaos divine treasure. What is a chaos divine treasure? Jian Wushuang had no idea what that was. It's a rare kind of treasure that exists in the eternal chaotic world. Although a chaos divine treasure is not very much of a use for experts such as Star Bloodline's founder and King Luo Zhen, it can be enormously helpful for experts who are weaker. Someone like King Gu Tong, who is in his peak days, would covet a chaos divine treasure, King Gu said seriously. Is it that precious? Jian Wushuang looked surprised. It is. King Gu continued, furthermore, the map has been refined with a special technique which hides its scent. That's why I failed to recognize it as a chaos divine treasure, until you used it in that battle. Jian Wushuang, did your master give this map to you? Yes, he did. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. I am getting increasingly curious about your master. He granted you a secret skill to raise the intensity of your awareness, 13,800 Emperor weapon as your wedding gifts, and even a chaos divine treasure, Gu sighed in awe. Putting aside the secret technique to strengthen one's awareness. As for the 13,800 Emperor weapon, it meant little to King Gu as well. After all, in the eternal chaotic world, an Emperor weapon was too ordinary. But a chaos divine treasure was a different story. Only a few experts possess chaos divine treasures in the eternal chaotic world, and the ones that are able to cultivate them are even fewer, King Gu added. Your master gave you a chaos divine treasure, this shows that he must have an outstanding background. Maybe he is not as powerful as Star Bloodline's founder and King Luo Zhen, but he must be famous in the eternal chaotic world. Jian Wushuang agreed. His master, Palace Master Xian Yi, had always been mysterious. His origin, background, strength, and everything else about him remained a secret to everyone. Before Jian Wushuang, he had accepted 3 disciples. They did not practice hard, yet all of them became Dao masters. Xue Lingtian had even almost reached the peak of rank 3. Later, Palace Master Xian Yi accepted him. In the beginning, Xian Yi was an attentive master to Jian Wushuang. Later, Jian Wushuang was allowed to wander in the outside world without Xian Yi's interferences. Only when Jian Wushuang was in trouble would Xian Yi came to his disciples' rescue. On the selection ceremony, he had prepared 13,800 Emperor weapons, which was unbelievable to the Green Fire world. When Xian Yi had first learned about the ceremony, he started to prepare the gifts. When the gifts finally arrived, 3 years had passed. He prepared 13,800 Emperor weapons in 3 years. And King Gu Tong turned out to be Ancient Sect's sect master. Back in the Firmament territory, Ancient Sect's sect master had always been recognized as the greatest expert. However, during Jian Wushuang's stay in the Firmament territory, he had never met the sect master, let alone witnessed the master's swordsmanship. He never imagined that the Ancient Sect's sect master turned out to be a 7-star imperial god. The ancient god clan from the eternal zone of Firmament territory was most likely to be linked as well. In addition, King Gu Tong seemed to have helped Jian Wushuang on Xian Yi's order. Xian Yi could dispatch even a 7-star imperial god. And he actually had a chaos divine treasure like the Mountain River map. Everything showed that Xian Yi possessed great capabilities. I haven't talked to my master in a long time. I should send a message to pay my respects. Jian Wushuang decided and immediately took out a message token from his interspatial ring. Although he was injured, he could still send messages through message tokens. Master, I am still alive. Jian Wushuang sent a very brief message. Moments after he sent his message, he received a response from Xian Yi. I know. Xian Yi's voice was indifferent and did not sound surprised at all. When I accepted you as my disciple, I planted a sword spark in you. The sword spark is connected to you. The sword spark, although weak, did not disappear. And I know that you are still alive. I am very weak now, and it will take a long time for me to recover. Jian Wushuang replied. Don't worry, take your time. Xian Yi said while smiling. Thank you for your help in the Battle of the Tang of the East. Jian Wushuang said, grateful to his master. It was Gu Tong who helped you in the battle of the imperial palace. It had nothing to do with me. You should go thank him instead. Xian Yi laughed. Although Xian Yi put it this way, Jian Wushuang was highly aware that Gu Tong only helped because Xian Yi had ordered him to. Master, when I was using the mountain river map to kill Dao Yuanzi in the battle, he said that the map is a chaos divine treasure. Jian Wushuang appeared doubtful. Oh. Dao Yuanzi had a discerning eye. He indeed came from the blood-killing sect. Xian Yi gave a faint smile. It is indeed a chaos divine treasure. Unfortunately, it is a damaged one. Its power has been diminished. Damaged? Jian Wushuang looked surprised. Nevertheless, it can be of great help to you. You should take it, Xian Yi said. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded, and then continued, Master, the universal Tao scripture that you gave me was a secret technique to improve my awareness, is that right? Oh. You found out? Xian Yi admitted with a smile. So I was right. Jian Wushuang fell silent. He had only speculated that the universal Tao scripture might have something to do with his heightened awareness. He had just confirmed this speculation. Awareness is important for a warrior. You are still physically weak, and you don't feel the importance of awareness yet. In the future when you get stronger, you will experience the benefits of strong awareness. Xian Yi smiled. Jian Wushuang nodded, but immediately asked in a grave manner. I have one more question. Master, are you really just an eternal realm level expert? Chapter 964, Changes in Tang of the East, Part 1. Chapter 964, Changes in Tang of the East, Part 1. Does Xian Yi really only belong to the eternal realm level? Jian Wushuang had carried this question in his mind for a long time and had yet to find an answer for it. It was only until today that he found the courage to ask Xian Yi for an answer. Haha, Xian Yi laughed. I'm definitely only at the eternal realm level. Any Dao master may just kill me. Your current strength is much stronger than mine. Jian Wushuang was full of doubts. Really? Merely of the eternal realm level? That's all for now, there are some things that you don't know now but soon, you will. Your current priority is to quickly restore your strength because Tang of the East is in big trouble. They are still waiting for you. Xian Yi laughed heartily before falling completely silent. Hearing his master's words, Jian Wushuang felt utterly helpless. But he relaxed soon after. Master, no matter who you are, what your origin and background are, and no matter how strong you are my master and will always be my master. Once a teacher, always a father. Jian Wushuang murmured in his heart. Jian Wushuang was full of gratitude towards his master, a person who seemed to have no desire for anything. His master had helped him a lot and saved him numerous times. He decided that from that day onwards, no matter what his master's orders were, he would fulfill them to his best ability, as long as they did not violate his principles. After finishing their talk, Jian Wushuang immediately recalled Xian Yi's words. Tang of the East is in big trouble. Deep in thought, Jian Wushuang fetched a message token from the interspatial ring. This token belonged to Wang Yuan. Big brother Wang Yuan. Jian Wushuang sent his message over. In the newly rebuilt imperial palace of Tang of the East, Wang Yuan sat in a secret chamber, concentrating on cultivating an elixir. Upon receiving Jian Wushuang's message, he widened his eyes. He lost control of his fire and a huge bang was heard from inside the alchemy stove. The elixir he had been refining turned into ashes instantly. But Wang Yuan did not care for this. He immediately retrieved Jian Wushuang's message token. Third bother. Third brother. Wang Yuan sounded elated. It's really you, did you not die? It's me. Jian Wushuang replied. But I saw with my own eyes how you got blood everywhere. Wang Yuan was in doubt. That does not mean I had died. Jian Wushuang smiled wryly. Ha, yes. Wang Yuan smiled in an almost crazy manner. Great, great, you really are alive. I have to inform second brother immediately, and Emperor Shao as well. Don't. Jian Wushuang stopped him. What's the matter? Wang Yuan stopped in his tracks. Big brother Wang Yuan, I have a question to ask you. What is the situation in Tang of the East now? Jian Wushuang asked. The situation is not very optimistic. Wang Yuan said gloomily, 10 years ago, Emperor Shao defeated and suppressed Emperor Leng, but Tang of the East lost its vigor and luck in the battle. In that battle, the Xia clan almost lost their battle strength completely too. They owned many treasures which many top clans yearned to possess. But the new Xia clan master was very capable. He managed to build an immortal army in a short period of time and fought against other clans. In the past decade, Tang of the East has been in a state of chaos. What about Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun? Jian Wushuang asked again. With their presence in Tang of the East, no clans would dare to be presumptuous, right? Third brother, things have changed. A long time ago, Emperor Shao left Tang of the East. His status was gradually lost within the country. Even if he returns to Tang of the East now, he is no longer able to give commands because hardly anyone listens to him anymore. 10 years ago, in the Battle of the Imperial Palace, he and Emperor Yun were both injured by Dao Yuanzi. Now, the both of them remained only 30% of their original strength. They can no longer get others to surrender by martial force. In addition, although Emperor Leng was suppressed, she had after all governed Tang of the East for many years. Recently, her numerous experts have been stirring up troubles in the country. Emperor Shao had to suppress her experts with all his strength. He doesn't have any more energy to deal with the rioting clans. He can only wait until his strength is completely restored. Wang Yuan said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He did not expect that, in such a short time, Tang of the East would end up in such a plight. Even Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun could not summon full control over the situation. Tang of the East may be in a state of chaos, but since you're still alive, you can help them. Wang Yuan suddenly said. Oh. Jian Wushuang appeared doubtful. Third brother, you saved Tang of the East single-handedly 10 years ago. You were not far from a god in the eyes of the people there. Even today, people are still talking about you and your brave deeds. Countless young warriors in Tang of the East regard you as an example to be followed. Besides, your strength is formidable, even though you had actually made use of a special method to be even more powerful 10 years back. But you achieved such power despite being so young and belonging only to the eternal realm level. When you become a Dao master, what would it mean? It probably means that no one in the entire eternal world can beat you. You have high status and huge capabilities. You don't have to do anything more. As long as you show up with Emperor Shao in Tang of the East, and declare that you have survived and still support Emperor Shao, which clans would still dare to be disrespectful? Who would dare to not listen to his order? Wang Yuan said. Hearing Wang Yuan's words, Jian Wushuang was completely dumbfounded. Am I that influential in Tang of the East? Jian Wushuang found it hard to believe. Come on. King Gu suddenly voiced out. Jian Wushuang, are you still not aware of what you have done? You killed a blood-killing sect expert. Even experts at the top of the Green Fire world dare not look down on you, not to mention the people in Tang of the East. More importantly, you are currently at the Eternal Realm level. In the eyes of the people in the Green Fire world, you have immense potential. Chapter 965, Changes in Tang of the East, Part 2. Chapter 965, Changes in Tang of the East, Part 2. Your potential is the greatest in Green Fire World. As long as you have the opportunity and luck, you'll become a Dao Master and perhaps even beyond that. With such a huge potential, who in Green Fire World would dare to mess with you? Gu Qing's voice rang out. Jian Wushuang fell silent. After a while, he sent a message saying, "Big brother Wang Yuan, don't tell other people that I'm still alive. If it is really necessary, you can tell second brother and Emperor Shao." Why? Wang Yuan wondered. If the news that Jian Wushuang was still alive got out, the entire eternal world would be in shock. Clans and mansion masters of the 36 prefectures in Tang of the East would pull back their plans because of Jian Wushuang. This meant peace for a short period of time. However, if Jian Wushuang's survival remained as a secret, Tang of the East would continue to be trapped in the current mayhem. Tang of the East has been greatly devastated, and the situation is dire. However, such a dangerous state will reveal the hidden threats. Jian Wushuang said in a severe tone. Emperor Leng has governed Tang of the East for many years. Who knows what Tang of the East has become? If Emperor Shao wants to take over Tang of the East fully, he must remove the threats. Hence, just let the clans be. The more troubles they cause, the more threats will be revealed. When the time is right, we will remove all of them at once. Besides, although I survived the battle 10 years ago, I'm in poor condition now. Within a short period of time, I can't show up in public. Even if you spread the news, no one will believe it. They will only think that Emperor Shao has come to his wit's end. It will cause more trouble. Is that so? I understand. Wang Yuan nodded heavily, agreeing with Jian Wushuang. By the way, how's Leng Rushuang doing? Jian Wushuang was worried about her. He had asked about Tang of the East's situation because Emperor Shao had saved him, but most importantly because he cared about Leng Rushuang. When he married her, he would be the emperor's son-in-law. Naturally, he was obliged to help Tang of the East. However, Leng Rushuang was a primordial great sinner. In the battle 10 years ago, Leng Rushuang went into a coma after being seriously injured. Although Gu Qing had managed to save her life, Jian Wushuang did not hear from her over the following decade. Her Highness, speaking of Leng Rushuang, Wang Yuan fell silent. What happened to her? Jian Wushuang asked, sounding a little anxious. Don't worry, she is well and has healed a lot from her injuries. But ever since after that war, she has been in a coma, and has not woken up since then. Wang Yuan said. Still in a coma. Jian Wushuang's heart sank. Even after becoming into blood fog, he had spent only 10 years to regain consciousness. Why was Leng Rushuang still in a coma? Gu Qing, what's going on? Jian Wushuang immediately asked Gu Qing. Gu Qing was knowledgeable and knew more than Jian Wushuang about primordial great sinners. I don't know much about this too. Gu Qing shook his head. Primordial great sinners are as rare as inverse cultivators in eternal chaotic world. I used to follow King Luo Zhen in the eternal chaotic world, and met one primordial great sinner. So I got to have some understanding about them. However, your girl seems to be different from other primordial great sinners. Different? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Don't worry, you must first heal your body and recover your strength. When you go to Tang of the East to visit her, let me take a closer look, and then maybe I can answer you, said Gu Qing. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded. Big brother Wang Yuan, watch over Tang of the East for me. If there is anything wrong, send me a message at once. Jian Wushuang said. Yes, I will. Wang Yuan promised. After their exchange, Jian Wushuang felt calmer. In my current state, I can't save Tang of the East from trouble or do anything for Leng Rushuang who is in a coma. I must concentrate on recovering. Jian Wushuang knew very well what he should do. In the cave mansion deep underground, Jian Wushuang began to self-heal. Even with the help of the treasures left behind by Dao Yuanzi, Jian Wushuang still needed 1,000 years to recover. Jian Wushuang could only be patient and focused on restoring his health. Time passed slowly while he was healing himself. In the 18th year after Jian Wushuang regained consciousness, Wang Yuan sent a message. Bad news. Bad news. Third brother, clans in Tang of the East joined forces and destroyed the Xia clan's immortal army. After Xia clan fell, other forces in Tang of the East and some of the mansion masters from the 36 prefectures fought madly for their own interests. The situation in the entire Tang of the East has spiraled out of control. It was the 20th year after Jian Wushuang regained his consciousness. Third brother, the Xia clan has been eliminated. Their heritage treasures have been divided among various clans and experts. This battle is very fierce, and it is not ending. Many clans have made enemies in this battle and are still fighting against each other. But Emperor Shao has stayed out of this. It was the 60th year. Trouble, Tang of the East is in big trouble. The three big countries, West Paradise, South Mountain Kingdom, and North Sea Kingdom, had remained indifferent when Tang of the East was in turmoil. As peace is now being restored in Tang of the East, the three big countries have started fighting simultaneously. They must have discussed beforehand, because they had brought along some clans of Tang of the East, including several mansion masters of the 36 prefectures. Tang of the East is almost defenseless now. Third brother, when are you coming back? Chapter 966, A Thousand Years, 3-Star Ancient God. Chapter 966, A Thousand Years, 3-Star Ancient God. It was the 121st year after Jian Wushuang had regained his consciousness. Third brother, 11 of the 36 prefectures have fallen into the hands of the big three countries. Emperor Shao and Emperor had put up a fight, but were defeated due to their existing injuries. The fight almost caused Emperor Yun his life. The Big Three's force is formidable, Tang of the East is unable to overcome it. It was the 128th year. Third brother, the Big Three countries have already fight their way to the front of the imperial palace. Emperor Shao had decided to give up Tang of the East and depart with Her Highness. I had no choice but to let them know that you are alive. Knowing that you are alive, Emperor Shao was elated and immediately decided against leaving. He paid a hefty sum for the Eternal World's greatest formation master, Dao Master Spirit, to set up a strong formation around the imperial palace. Experts from the Big Three countries had tried to break the formation but failed. Even their celestial masters remain helpless in front of the formation. It was the 210th year. Third brother, I have good news, very good news. Her Highness has woken up. Not only has she woken up, she also improved her strength and is almost as strong as a celestial master. She even battled against experts from Big Three countries outside the formation. Many Dao masters of Big Three countries couldn't defeat her. Third brother, don't worry. Her Highness and the formation will prevent the experts of Big Three countries from taking over. Emperor Shao has decided to wait for your return. It was the 580th year. Third brother, have you not returned yet? We have been hiding within this formation for hundreds of years. Although we're safe, the people from Big Three countries curse us from outside of the palace every day. Their words are so foul that even I'm irritated, let alone Emperor Shao. Terrible, such a terrible feeling. Third brother, come back soon and kill this bunch of bastards. 1,200 years passed with Wang Yuan's message. In the cave dwellings deep underground, sat a figure with his legs crossed and surrounded by dark golden light. He had a handsome face and wore short hair. His muscles were bulging and the curves were almost perfect. The most attractive feature of his were the 3 golden quadrangular star images between his eyebrows. The figure shook all of a sudden. In the next moment, the figure opened his eyes. A streak of golden light went past in a flash. Thereafter, a huge rift, within which consisted of nothing, appeared in the space in front of him. The dark golden light that had surrounded Jian Wushuang's body vanished. Jian Wushuang's body landed on the ground, and he promptly put on a scarlet robe. 1,200 years. My body has finally recovered. Jian Wushuang clasped both of his hands firmly, eyes flashing. It had been the longest and the most mundane years for Jian Wushuang. During this period of time, he had concentrated on healing his body, and could not cultivate his skills at all. Now, he has finally healed his body, and upgraded his strength to a higher level. Eyes narrowed, Jian Wushuang released his bloodline power. Instantly, his entire body turned to a shade of dark golden, while at the same time, the 3 quadrangular star images between his eyebrows gleamed. 3-star ancient god. And an fully established 3-star imperial god at that. Jian Wushuang was delighted. He had previously consumed King Luo Zhen's inheritance essence blood by force, and even though 90% of it had gone to waste, the remaining power was not ineffectual. Over the past 1,200 years, while Jian Wushuang was healing himself, he had completely assimilated the ancient god power that he had cultivated. As a result, he had not only become an imperial god, but also enhanced his strength, attaining the 3rd star level. One must know that a 3-star ancient god was as powerful as a Tao master in the world of humans. But unfortunately, although his ancient god power had been enhanced, his ranking was not, which means that his ranking was still of the eternal level. Well, if you had slowly consumed the inheritance essence blood, you would have at least become a 6-star imperial god. Because of your careless handling, however, you have only achieved the 3rd star level. Fortunately, your imperial bloodline has been fully accomplished. King Gu spoke up. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang silently smiled, having no regrets at all. I'm just grateful that my imperial bloodline has completely formed. As for improving my strength, that's something supplementary and desirable, and I will not force myself to achieve anything. That's easy for you to say, but you have just wasted King Luo Zhen's painstaking efforts. Keep in mind that if you can't reach the 6-star level on your own, I will be the first one to come after you. I'll try my best. Jian Wushuang shrugged, and immediately felt the power stirring within himself. During the Battle of the Imperial Palace, my combat power had become as strong as that of a rank 1 Tao master. Now that my ancient god power has made a breakthrough by reaching the 3rd star level, I'm stronger than ever. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with excitement. I have reached the 3-star imperial god level, and there is a long way to go to achieve the ultimate level of the ancient god power. Nevertheless, my strength is comparable to that of a rank 2 Tao master in the world of humans. My tactics and strategies will bring me one step closer to the peak of rank 2. Ancient gods were advantageously skilled. The strength of a top 3-star imperial god was comparable to that of a top Tao master of rank 3. Jian Wushuang had reached the 3rd star level recently. Yet despite being an imperial god, he could only compete with rank 2 Tao masters. With the addition of his strategies, he can advance towards the top of rank 2. In comparison with his previous power at rank 1, he had indeed progressed tremendously. King Gu, I remember you mentioned that there are many great items left behind by Dao Yuanzi that'll be helpful to me. What are they? Jian Wushuang asked. King Gu, who had been nesting in the cave dwellings, swiftly flung an interspatial ring towards Jian Wushuang after hearing this. That is Dao Yuanzi's interspatial ring. Take a close look at it. I have already picked out the treasures which will be of great use for you. King Gu answered. Taking over the interspatial ring, Jian Wushuang scrutinized it. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.